You're listening to DIY Vows, Book 3 in the clickandwed.com Romances by Bonnie Paulson. Jack of all hearts, a woman and her tool belt, a man and his cell phone. Even her skill set as a handywoman is no match for their magnetic pull. Elizabeth wants love, but she's keeping her independence, no matter what. Married to a businessman who was shackled to a rundown family home, Beth works to prove she has value to herself and her new husband. When Tyler loses a bet, he's stuck with the family money pit and a wife he doesn't want. Can a renovated home repair the damage to both their hearts? Or is clickandwed.com going to have its first failed match? Chapter 1. Tyler. Tyler loved his new condo on the west side of the bay. He'd signed the lease only 3 months before. Unfortunately, there wasn't a 12-step program for his addiction to the view of the bay and the nearly permanent absent neighbors. His long legs stretched comfortably beneath the table in front of him as he leaned back in his wing dining chair. Resting his elbow on an armrest, he watched his younger brother, Jay, and their mutual buddies, Mac and Ryan, as they quibbled over the amount of their bet. Mac finally gave in and threw 3 gold Sacagawea dollar coins into the center of the green felt tabletop. "Okay, boys, this is my last hand. Marcy's going to kill me if I show up late tonight. I almost wasn't able to come. Because of last time." He wrinkled his nose and avoided making eye contact with anyone. "Yeah, his wife almost grounded him." Ryan guffawed as he tossed in his matching coins. "I tell you what, if my wife ever told me—" Jay arched his blonde eyebrows over brown eyes. "Ryan, no one will be your wife, ever. So, you, my friend, will never have to worry about it. I don't know any woman that wants a guy who lives with his mother." The guys laughed, tossing out more good-natured jokes at each other as they munched on chips and dip and drank from their bottles. They called, holding their cards tight in their hands, ready to show the faces. As they lay them down, Ty couldn't imagine a more perfect guy's night. Every night could be guy's night, if he wanted it to be. Bachelorhood was the perfect life for him. Answering to no one was right up his alley. He didn't have to walk around any woman like Jay and Mac, and he didn't have to answer to his mother like Ryan. Mac groaned. "And Ty Guy takes the game again. Is this your night, man, or what? I bet you can make any bet tonight and not lose. Go out and get that lottery card." Ty was feeling lucky. He silently agreed with Mac that he probably could bet anything and win. He humbly claimed the winnings pot in the center of the table and pulled it towards his own stash. "I hate to see you guys leave, taking all your money with you." "Oh, wait. No, I don't. I'll keep your money to make it less traumatic." He laughed and stood with them as they gathered their things. They mumbled with smiles, claiming their food or other items they'd brought for the evening. "I'm just going to crash here. Is that all right, Ty? Sylvia is at her mom's, and I think I've had a little too much to drink tonight." Jay stretched, then grabbed his drink and snack plate from his spot at the table and headed into the kitchen. "You know you're always welcome, bro." Ty walked his friends to the door as they left. He hadn't realized how late it was getting. "I need to work tomorrow. I didn't see the hour." Jay helped clear the table and move the items into the kitchen. The weekly game night always culminated in brotherly bonding. Not every time was an overnighter, though. Ty liked the late nights with his brother and found them to be well worth the lack of sleep. "Have you heard from Mom?" Jay didn't look directly at Ty, which of course suggested that Jay had heard from Mom, and that he had something to share with Ty that Ty wasn't going to like. Ty sighed. "Number I haven't. Have you?" He sipped the melted ice in the bottom of his glass. "Yeah, she's pretty happy." Jay turned, hiding his face from Tyler. "She wants us to sell the house." Laughing out loud, Ty shook his head and rinsed off the dishes in his sink. "I'm not selling anything. I don't have time to fix it up. We won't get half the market value for it in the state it's in. How much does Mom owe?" Jay faced Ty and leaned against the counter, his arms crossed at his waist. "I don't have the money either. Sylvia's finishing up med school, and we don't have the cash for that." He stared at the floor and then met Ty's gaze. I want to propose to her, but I'm not sure. I'm nervous. With the house and the other stuff Mom tossed at me during our last phone call, I got spooked. Wow. Marriage? Ty watched Jay. He swore he'd never get married himself. Did you think I'd live with her forever? I love her. I just don't know if I'm ready. He stepped forward and braced his arm on the counter beside Ty, speaking softly. I think you should take the house. You don't have any family responsibilities or anything. You can do this. Hire someone to fix it. It can't be that hard. It's a money pit. I can't sink money into that place and my company at the same time. I'll lose them both. Tyler didn't want the house. He didn't want to deal with the after effects of Mom meeting someone new and running off to Italy with the man like she was a young teenager. Leaving all of her accounts, properties, and assets, essentially everything. To her sons, she counted on them to pull her out of any holes that might be left. Of course, Jay and Ty would do exactly what she wanted. They always did. What's going on with the company? Is it in danger? Jay turned, a towel draped over his shoulder, as he grabbed more dishes to tuck into the sink for Ty to rinse. Shrugging, Ty tried not to let his irritation show. It's a family brand. The company prides itself on having a family persona. Taking over companies and rebuilding them is easier with the companies believing you're out to protect the families. I'm not cohesive with that brand. It's hard to have the front face of the company as a bachelor. The counselors want me to get married, at least publicly. He grunted in frustration. I don't have time for that. I barely have time for the weekend flings that I do have. You make it sound like such a chore. Jay laughed, but rolled his eyes, popping a stray chip in his mouth. If Tyler wasn't seriously frustrated with his predicament, he would punch his brother in the arm and laugh off Jay's fake jealousy. What's wrong with being voted San Francisco's most eligible anyway? I don't know what I would do with that. Jay had turned his back on Tyler, and Tyler sensed a tone of bitterness, not enough to be offsetting, but enough to add an arsenic flavor to their conversation. Nothing's wrong with the title, except the number of women after me have increased, and not because I'm particularly striking. There's just not a lot right with the award either. Ty finished loading the dishwasher and pressed the start button. He motioned Jay out of the clean kitchen and into the living room. His new leather furniture and 60-inch screen television would have made him purr if he were a cat. Settling on the couch beside Ty, Jay picked up a deck of cards. He shuffled nonchalantly. I sense a bet coming on. He referenced the many high-stakes games Jay and Ty played throughout their life. He moved the cards between his hands in a fan and then an arc. 2 out of 3, let's play 21. Loser deals with the house. Mac had pointed out that Ty Guy was on a winning streak that night. He probably could win just about any bet he placed. He believed it. As if a rush of warmth flooded through him, he imagined an influx of luck flowing through his blood. Okay, loser deals with the house and any of the other issues that come with it. Ty jerked his chin upward in a sharp nod. He didn't want to come off as too cocky. He hadn't won yet. Jay grinned. He shuffled, waited for Ty to cut the deck, and then dealt 2 cards to both of them. Pushing aside a stack of magazines, Ty ignored them as they fell to the floor from the coffee table, falling open. First hand, Tyler lost to Jay, but that was okay. Jay won the first one. It was only one. The loss didn't faze him, and Ty shook it off. That's how he always played. He was low man in the beginning, and then he always came out on top. He picked up the magazine while Jay shuffled the next hand. The advertisement the magazine had fallen open to had a lot of white space and a red heart circled with a dialogue icon. clickandwed.com was prominently displayed on the bottom of the page. At the top, the ad screamed, "Marry your match today." Tyler guffawed. Can you imagine? Look at this. What losers would do this? He held open the ad toward Jay and smirked. Then a thought crossed his mind, and he pulled the magazine back, staring at the ad. Hey, let's make it interesting. The loser has to take the house and has to get married. Either you marry Sylvia or I'll marry the first person that Click and Wed matches me to. Ty challenged Jay with a laugh. Tyler had to up the ante, while Jay thought he had a chance. One loss on Ty's side, and he was raising the stakes. Jay raised his eyebrows, the challenge acknowledged and taunted in his gaze. Okay, I'm prepared to marry Sylvia. Are you prepared to marry the first person that's desperate enough to go on an online dating service? Tyler's confidence didn't shake. He would win. He always won. Plus, he couldn't see his future having anything to do with marriage or that house of his mother's. He was too happy with how things were. I am. Let's do this. Jay dealt the second hand. Ha ha ha, Tyler crowed as he won with a perfect score. What else can we do to make this even more fun? Anything else you want to add to this bet? We only have one hand left and we're tied up. One of us is getting married. And it's you, little brother. Ty wiggled his eyebrows and leaned back on the couch, reveling in the smooth coolness of the leather. Come on, one more. Let's make it really good. Okay, I've got one. Jay looked around the apartment. He pointed at the brand new furnishings and the barely lived on couches. If I win, not only do you get the house and you have to get married on Click and Wed, but I also get your apartment, rent-free. You have to live in that place for 6 months, meaning I get the condo for that time, while Sylvia and I figure out where we're going for her fellowship. The possibility of losing his apartment sent a twinge of doubt racing up and down Ty's spine. But wait, he was on the ride of his life. He would win the bet. He didn't try to hesitate, but he was a little nervous to lose his apartment. He'd learned a long time ago not to bet something you weren't willing to lose. He could handle being married to a stranger if he had to. His mom's place? Sure, he could do that. He had lost worse things. But his condo? Could he lose it? Not permanently, though, right? I don't want to give this up for good. I can handle 6 months if I have to. Jay laughed. No, of course not. Only the 6 months. Like a long, super long vacation. I cannot believe that you're worried more about losing the condo than you are about getting married. He shuffled a few more times, his gaze on Ty. Okay, let's do this. Closing his eyes, Ty waited for the click as the cards were laid out in front of him. Jay's gasp didn't have a specific connotation, and Ty snapped his eyes open. He had a respectable hand that would be hard to beat. But Ty's heart sank as he took in Jay's hand and his jaw dropped. He lost. Tyler had lost. His shoulders slumped and he rubbed his forehead. Jay crowed as he gathered up the cards. They made a point to razz each other when they won. Especially such a large prize. 21, my brother. 21. Looks like you are getting married and moving into a beautiful home in Oakland. And I get to have your apartment. He stood up and danced around the living room, dodging past the ceiling-high windows and rubbing his rear end on the far wall. He grunted. Just going to mark my territory over here. Don't pee on anything. Tyler pinched the bridge of his nose and hung his head. He groaned. You've got to be kidding me. Somehow he would have to talk Jay out of it. But deep down he knew he wouldn't. The Manning boys stuck to their bets. It's what they did. The only honor they held absolutely sacred. And Ty knew if he backed down this time, Jay would never stick to anything he bet in the future. Plus, this was what they did. Jay and Ty, for as long as he could remember, they stuck by each other, even in the most ridiculous of wagers. No matter which way Ty looked at it, his honor demanded he fulfill the bet. No matter how much he wanted to kick his brother out of the condo and hide in his bed. Tyler held up the ad and looked at the heart icon. Click and Wed. Hopefully I'm not paired up with any women from the Midwest. He tried not to engage in discouragement too much. Optimism was a choice, his mom always said. Chuckling with an evil laugh, Jay wagged his finger at Ty. Remember, it's the first one you're matched with. Despair was a new emotion for Tyler as he glared at his brother. He wouldn't put it past Jay to somehow manipulate the results. He'd probably put the worst possible match up for him. It wouldn't be the first time Jay had pulled off some kind of prank to really up the staying power of a bet. After considering Jay's excitement, Ty ignored the fact that he had lost what he'd considered a sure thing. He sighed. All right, you can have the apartment when my new computer bride moves in with me. I don't know how soon I'll have a match. It'd be even better if Mom moved back before Ty had to move in. He could hope her new fling ended early, couldn't he? Or was that just being mean spirited? He didn't even want to think about the horrific home his mother had left for them. He'd somehow have to make it all work as he forced himself to live with someone he didn't know, work on his business that was sinking fast, and be away from the hard to get condo on the bay. The next 6 months were not going to be fun. Chapter 2. Elizabeth. I wrapped my coat a little tighter around my waist. I'd broken the zipper of the expensive jacket the week before when I'd gotten into a wrestling match with the air compressor hose and a pneumatic tool. My best friend Alexandra Reeves wasn't in town anymore to help me with domestic tasks. Sewing a straight line was not one of my many talents. Not that I couldn't learn. I just didn't want to learn. However, I could fix anything with a screwdriver, and as I finished up the final remodel of a client's deck and jacuzzi addition, I couldn't help but wish I had a little bit more domestic talent. What man would want to marry a woman that couldn't make a TV dinner? At least I can order Chinese like a pro. The snow didn't fall fast or heavy, but more in a lazy pattern that comforted me. Finishing up a job in time to go home and enjoy some tea while watching the snow was a great way to wind down. I couldn't wait. Mr. Hindenburg called out from the top of the patio I'd just finished. "Thank you again, Lizzie. You did such a nice job. Are you sure you won't marry me?" The man was in his 60s or 70s, which wasn't old necessarily, but it was certainly more maturity than I wanted in a man. I was still looking for someone who wanted to have children with me, not great-grandchildren. Waving at him from behind my silver Dodge Ram, I called out in reply, "Thank you, Mr. Hindenburg. That's really sweet of you. I'm going to go visit my friend, though. Plus, well, I wasn't interested in marrying a man who only wanted me around so he didn't have to twist a screwdriver." "Oh, the one that walked out on her wedding?" He guffawed and slapped his thigh. "I still can't believe that happened. Who does that?" The stigma Alex had left was going to follow Elizabeth around the rest of her life. Or as long as she stayed in Arkansas. "Yes, sir. That's the one." But I didn't care. Mr. Hindenburg was my last client. I didn't work on closing my business for the last 3 months since I'd been to Alex's wedding for nothing. I'd signed up with Click and Wed, thanks to Alex, repaying me her sign-up fee. Waiting for my match was slowly killing me with impatience. I wasn't surprised, though. Dating me would be like dating one of the guys. I loved tools and talking shop. If the guy didn't cook or care about how the house was decorated, we'd both be left living in a hovel and eating takeout every night, and lunch, and morning. When I had emailed Click and Wed's owner, Colin Davies, for an update and find out how long it took people to get matches, the reply had been that it wasn't a widely used service yet, and my match would come in when it was time. The answer didn't make me feel that comforted since I'd already turned in my notice for vacating my place, and my last day was next weekend, if not before. Visiting Alex in Snoqualmie was the only thing I could think of to help me extend my homeless lifestyle until I had a match and a place to call home. I really just wanted to get started on my next adventure. Closing up shop and packing up everything was heartbreaking. I'd already established a solid working company and had taken on so many clients, I had a hard time keeping up with the demand. I'd been considering hiring a manager since, honestly, I hated the business part of things anyway. And then I'd sent Alex to Washington and decided to do the same thing to myself. My phone buzzed as I put my smaller toolbox into the back of my truck. I pulled the cell out of my pocket, ducking under the glass window hatch and yawning. Putting in 18-hour days in the freezing winter weather was catching up to me. This time of year was usually my downtime, but I'd promised too many people completed projects in the spring. I'd taken the jobs as a personal challenge to finish before finding a match. Too bad I wasn't matched yet. I wasn't a fan of failing. A red heart icon flashed on my phone. I pushed it, anxious to see what would be the answer. Had someone asked a question? Was there interest of some kind? Any kind of movement? I needed something to keep me going on this path I'd started on. I licked my lips, suddenly shaking, and it wasn't from the cold. The Click and Wed app dinged, and a red dialog box flashed. "You have a match!" Read the profile by pushing the red heart. Congratulations. I was so nervous. Pulling off my slim gloves, I blew warm air into my cupped fist and stared at the touch screen. Button, button, button. Did I push it? Or did I just continue to dwell in the mindset that I hadn't been matched yet? Do it. Just do it. I wouldn't be committing anything. I was just checking him out. I pushed the button and a handsome man's profile popped up on the screen. Almost too handsome. Like he knew his charming smile with blondish brown hair and dark eyes were like honey for women. Okay, there was no such thing as a too handsome man. And this one was matched to me. A white dress shirt with a blue tie set off his tan. He had broad shoulders and long lashes. I could only imagine what his hands felt like. I hoped charming meant friendly, because I could do with a friendly man for once. I'd hold out hope he wasn't a jerk, and be happy with what I got. What would he think when he saw my profile? What if he didn't like that I was a brunette? A lot of guys preferred blondes, like Alex, or that I couldn't cook. I hadn't lied on my questionnaire or in my comments when I'd pretty much warned the men away. How did I have a match that said he wanted to marry me? All I had to do was approve and click I do. The app said he was from San Francisco, California. Warm temperatures year-round? I could work all the time and not have to worry about my fingers falling off or if my lips were going to stick to the metal nails when I held them between my teeth. What was his name? Tyler Manning? He looked like a man's man, and I didn't know how our compatibility was almost at 100%. How was 99.5% even possible? We were probably matched like buddies because I could talk sports and tools, and most women couldn't. I thought Alex's compatibility score was high, but this was crazy. Glancing around at the snow-covered streets and trees with their branches overladen with snow, I couldn't find one thing wrong with having such a high score. There was a guy out there that was my perfect match. My happy ever after was just around the corner. I'd be as happy as Alex and Jeremy were. Excitement made my lips curve up, and I closed the hatch and climbed in the cab. Starting the engine, I waited for it to warm up. I moved to hit I do, but hesitated. What if he expected someone other than what he was getting? What if I wasn't the right one for him and he didn't know, but I did? I wasn't the one the guys took home to mom and dad to marry. I was the one they brought the street rods to for repair. A little yellow heart blinked on the bottom right hand of the screen. There was a note attached to the profile for me. I brought it up, a very simple note from Colin Davies. I hope you're happy with your match. I checked everything over myself, and he seems amazing for you. What a great compatibility score. Don't hesitate to reach out if you have any questions. Why wasn't I completely convinced the guy was my type? His clean appearance and amazing good looks should have had me clicking that I wanted to marry him immediately. But I wasn't shallow. That wasn't enough. What if he was the type of guy who didn't even know what dirt was? He might not like the outdoors, and he might only like the inside of an office. True, my feminine side would love to go on a date with him in that suit with me dressed in a dress and heels. The last time I wore heels, I was 16, and going to the senior prom with Drake Madison. This guy could definitely be Drake, but I was no longer a 16-year-old girl. Colin said she matched us. After Alex's wedding and how happy they were, I found it hard to doubt anything that Colin did. I pushed the home button and called Alex. Before she could even say hello when she answered, I blurted out, I got matched, but it's like a ridiculous score, 99.5 or something, and the guy is in California. He's dressed like Bob Hope. True, he's not that old, but still. Oh my gosh, though, he looks like that one guy from that show Suits, the blonde with the eyes and the jawline. You know who I'm talking about, remember? Anyway, I got a note from Colin on the match, too. Colin said the match was made by she or he or whoever Colin is. What do I do? What would you do? I took a deep breath, staring at the fogging up windshield. My friend waited another moment, as if I might start talking again. And I might. Who knew what I was going to do? Everything was up in the air, especially since I had pushed my best friend, into abandoning her husband at the altar and eloping with someone she'd never met. I think you should do it. I didn't know if I was really going to love Jeremy, but it's working out well. I'm happy. She hesitated as if she sensed that I had to hear something more concrete. Actually, since we're on the phone, I was just going to call you. You really need to come see me in about 7 months, give or take, wherever you're at. 7 months. Where would that put me? I'm sure the weather. Wait, why 7 months? Why such an arbitrary number? She was trying to tell me something. I calculated quickly in my head. It had been only a few months since the wedding, and I knew for a fact they had waited for the wedding night. Wait a minute. I dropped my jaw. Number, are you pregnant? Alex squealed. Yes, apparently honeymoons really do work. We're due in about 7 months. You have to come up. I hope by then you're desperately happy too. Maybe that'll be around the time you guys will come up here and have a real wedding like we did. You know you can use Forever Acres whenever you want. I bit my lip and blinked back the sentimental tears she brought out in me. Leave it to Alex to bring out my softer side. It wasn't easy to cry and be emotional when you worked with chop saws and metal grinders for a living. Do you really think I should do it? I snickered at my insecurity. He might not be impressed by me. I do, and he's lucky to have you. You're impressive in so many ways. You're amazing. Stop talking like that. I really think you're going to be pleasantly surprised. She had such joy in her voice. I wanted that for myself. Okay, I'm going to do it. Love you. I hung up, and before I could think too much about what she said, I clicked. I do. I only get to live once, right? Chapter 3. Elizabeth. My phone buzzed as I stepped into the bathroom of the San Francisco International Airport. I'd been at the airport almost 2 hours waiting for my new husband to pick me up. 2 hours. Who made someone wait that long? Ordering dinner was an option, but I wasn't sure what Tyler had planned, so I didn't want to ruin my appetite. Although, at the rate we were going, I'd probably end up eating at the airport, in the bathroom. The 3 iced teas I ordered rushed through me, and I couldn't wait any longer for him to show up. I rolled my carry-on alongside me. There was a short line in the restroom, and the stalls looked tight. I adjusted my fanny pack to the back of my waist and worked my carry-on underneath the counter, lodging it beneath the plumbing of the sink. There wouldn't be any room in the stall for the cumbersome bag and me. Hopefully, one of the other women wouldn't mind helping me out. I made eye contact with a blonde woman who applied lipstick in the mirror. I smiled as nicely as I could without looking hokey. Would you mind watching this for a second, please? I just need to use the restroom. I tried my most charming tone, but it had to be dimmed by my exhaustion and frustration with my new husband and situation. Sure, honey, I can help you out. She curved her bright red lips at me and fluffed her brassy blonde hair. I ignored when she adjusted her breasts in her tight white tank and made an O with her lips. Thanks. I slipped in line and finally got my turn in the stall on the end. It didn't take long to relieve myself. I settled my shirt back into place and pulled my fanny pack down over it. Alex hated my pack with everything in her being, but I was so fond of it. The many compartments held everything I needed, like my wallet, money, driver's license, phone, and chapstick. My phone buzzed again, but with 2 short vibrations in quick succession. I pulled it out and glanced at the screen. A bright red heart in a dialogue icon demanded I check in. Not happening until I was somewhere that wasn't a public bathroom. Tucking my phone in the pack, I left the stall, blowing a puff of air from being tired but finally relieved. At least the pressure of needing to use the bathroom had been released. Thank you so much. I looked around for the blonde woman, but she was nowhere in sight. I hadn't meant to take so long. I looked under the counter and froze. Wait, where was my bag? Panicked, I glanced around at the other women in the restroom, searching the faces for the one I should recognize, the one I had counted on to help me. She was nowhere in sight, and the other women avoided my gaze, as if they had seen her walk out and no one had stopped her. I ran out of the bathroom, searching the rushing crowd as it passed by in both directions. Biting my lip, I slapped my thigh. She was nowhere in sight. I wasn't stupid. She'd taken my bag and handed it to someone else. My cheap traveling clothes were probably being rifled through as I sat there sick to my stomach. I watched my fair share of CSI. At least I could be glad my body hadn't ended up in the middle of the bay on some garbage barge. Who did I call? What was I supposed to do when I had no evidence and I was thousands of miles from home? No, wait. This was my home now. What a great homecoming. I pulled out my phone and remembered I had gotten a text. Please, be something good. Please. Be from my husband, and he was coming to rescue me. Instead, it was a text from the shipping company I had hired to transport all of my tools and other items with my truck. They were stuck in inclement weather and wouldn't be there for another 2 days. Awesome. Everything was late, plus my bag was stolen, and I was stuck in an airport. I flopped onto the nearest bench and stared at the tiled wall. What was I supposed to do? I wasn't a crier, so that wasn't happening. I was frustrated and had no hammer and no wood and no clothes to change into from my denim capris and Skechers. Even the address I had wasn't accurate. After waiting the first 30 minutes for my new husband, I went to the taxi line. Another 15 minutes and I got a cab. I climbed in and gave the driver the San Francisco address I had. The cab driver had laughed. There is no such address. Try again, sweetheart. I'd climbed out, dragging my carry-on along with me. At least I'd had my stuff then. The discouragement I'd felt then was nothing to what was dragging me down as I sat outside the bathrooms. I had no one to pick me up, no one to call. Unless, of course, the Click and Wed app had the contact information I needed. Using precious battery power, I looked up the app and flipped through to their contact information. No way was I going to check in until I'd actually walked through the walls of my husband's home, my new home. A phone number was under their contact page. I dialed the number and reached a voicemail. Bullpucky. I dialed again. Voicemail. I called 7 times until finally someone answered with a frustrated tone to his voice. Hello, this is Carlisle. Thank you for calling Click and Wed. How can I help you? This is Elizabeth Snyder. I need the address for my new husband's place. I've been at this airport now almost 3 hours, and I'm so tired. Can you please help me? I tried hiding the plaintive whine that I knew was lurking beneath my calm. The address looks like it doesn't match the billing address. Here, let me get that for you. I'll text it to your phone. He was friendly and supportive. I'm glad he finally answered. Thank you. Maybe it had been a typo or something when Tyler typed it into the personal information section. We hung up and the text came through a minute later. Oakland? Oakland and San Francisco were not typos. I needed a minute. I needed to try to work through what is going on in my head. What was going on in that airport? Did he not want to marry me? I was desperately confused, and I had to get out of there. I didn't care how much battery I used. I called Alex and started crying when she answered the phone. Okay, not real tears, just more whining and complaining. My carry-on was stolen. Alex, stolen. From the bathroom by a blonde woman putting on red lipstick. Tell me, please, tell me that this is not karma. What did I do wrong to make this happen to me? Alex laughed and I narrowed my gaze as she spoke. You're not as panicked sounding as I would expect someone to be when their carry-on is stolen. Was it really? She had a point. I usually messed around and teased her, but this wasn't the time for that. I sighed and gripped the side of my fanny pack while looking around for the despicable blonde. Well, yeah, I'm upset. I think I'm in shock, and plus, it's just stuff I couldn't fit into my boxes. Just a couple overnight outfits and stuff. Nothing fancy. It didn't have anything of value in it. Besides underwear. Probably not the kind the blonde wore anyway. My supposed best friend didn't even cover her laugh at this point. Are you wearing your fanny pack? I glanced around, as if maybe wearing the pack was illegal. What's wrong with the fanny pack? Get off my back about that. Not only is my carry-on stolen, but my things are late, too. I sighed. I really wasn't that upset some cheap clothes had been stolen. Too much is piling on, that's why I'm so upset. Her tone immediately changed, and she tried to be more comforting than cajoling. I'm sorry, I thought you were joking. Do you need me to come to you, or do you want to come up here? Want me to get you a ticket? Leave it to Alex to try to fix everything. Normally, that was my role. Number? I'll figure it out. I'm frustrated because my new husband sent me an email telling me he'd pick me up. How could he put the wrong address in too? Is he doing this on purpose? But you have a new address, right? Alex came at things with a logical bent, which was great when I needed help leveling my head. Yeah, it's in Oakland. I scanned the area around me. Since the incident in the bathroom, I wasn't completely comfortable being by myself, and I really wanted to get out of there. My frustration and shock had swiftly changed to uneasiness. If they'd been willing to steal from me in a bathroom full of women, what else would they try and get away with? Go get a taxi and get to Oakland. I'm sure he's confused about something. It's probably just a misunderstanding. These things happen all the time. Her smooth tone consoled me, and I stood from the bench. I sighed in relief. You're probably right. I mean, look at how happy you guys turned out. I'm sure this is just one of those glitches. Thankfully, I don't have to deal with the mother-in-law my first day. We both laughed. She snickered, not insulted in the least. You're a brat. I grinned, more comfortable with a plan to put into action. Yeah, but you love me. Talk to you later. Let me know you made it. I can't wait to hear how amazing you two get along. I could hear the smile in her voice, and that made me feel even better. We hung up. I might be all alone in San Francisco, but I wasn't completely on my own. If I needed anything, I had someone I could call who was calm enough to keep me sane. She was more important to me than I told her. Something didn't smell right, and I rushed to the exit for fresh air. Returning to the taxi line, I grimaced at the humid heat. It really wasn't that bad, but it was January. I had expected it to be warm, but the longer I was abandoned at that airport, the more I missed Arkansas and the bitterer I became. The warm weather didn't let my negativity last long. I lifted my face to the low afternoon sun and soaked in the vitamin D. My turn came, and I leaned in to talk to the taxi driver. I wasn't climbing in the car until I knew for sure I had a real address. Can I get to 368 Staten Avenue in Oakland? The cab smelled of Reuben sandwiches and French fries. My stomach growled. Maybe I needed to get a different cab. I didn't want to eat the cushions. The shock on his face didn't reassure me. He half twisted to see me better with an arm across the passenger seat headrest. Yeah, come on in. That's one heck of a drive. Are you sure you want to go that far? I don't have any other options. That's the address I have. Do you take MasterCard? I didn't blanch at the thought of using my credit card. I only used them for security reasons. I had plenty of money. I just didn't want to give someone I didn't know direct access with the card number. Your dime, he said good-naturedly and motioned me inside. Climbing in, I closed the door and we fell into an easy silence. I had never been to the West Coast. The sunshine itself was overwhelming, like I was being forced into a good mood. I wasn't a fan of forced joviality, and that's exactly what the sun was trying to do to me. Sometimes a girl just wanted to be cranky, like that afternoon. I wanted to be mad, and the sun was making that impossible. I couldn't absorb everything we passed, and the 40-minute drive passed quickly. We crossed the bridge in the bay and entered an older part of town. I leaned forward and pointed at a large campus. What is that? That's Berkeley. The address you gave me is on the north side of Merritt Lake. I've seen some pretty homes up there. It's an older part of town, but a good neighborhood. Have you ever been here? He must have sensed I wasn't from anywhere on the West Coast. They seemed to speak faster closer to the water, and I was a little too friendly for my own good. Red lipsticked woman, anyone? I shook my head, staring out the window at my new home. For all intents and purposes, I wasn't going back to Arkansas. I couldn't do it. I wouldn't do it. I'd accepted Tyler and his home. I was going to make it work there, no matter what. Everyone needed a handywoman, even if they didn't know it. The cab driver pulled onto an incline, parking at the curb of a home that could be 3 or 4 stories. I was thrown off by the angle of the hill as it cut the view of the foundation in half. Here you go. You got lucky. This is one of the historical homes. It doesn't look like they have it tagged as one, but it's a nice one. All they need to do is clean it up some. He held out his hand for the card. Glancing at the meter, I swallowed my gasp at the high number. I smiled as I paid. He'd gotten me to the address and in a pretty quick time frame, too. He scanned my card and I wrote in a tip. Thank you. I climbed from the cab and he pulled away slowly. I turned to face the cream-colored home. The stately architecture was diminished by the chipping paint and the various shades of siding. The patchwork style looked like they couldn't decide if they wanted to use vinyl or slats. At least it wasn't the stucco I'd seen all over the place. I could replace vinyl or slats with my eyes closed. Stucco was a messier business. A realtor's for sale sign hung limply in the green, shaggy grass. He was trying to sell the house? I was even more confused. Would I be there only to move again? That wasn't a pleasant prospect considering all my tools were agonizing to move. Trees surrounding the house and running the gamut of the street gave me a fresh perspective on another reason to be glad there wasn't any snow. The sun began to set, and orange rays slashed across the emerald green leaves of the trees. My bad mood was suddenly diminished, and it almost disappeared at the appearance of pink rhododendrons on the edge of the sidewalk. I climbed the steps to the rundown home, verifying the address numbers nailed to the front of the porch post. I cringed with each creak of the handrail when I touched it as I climbed the stairs. The cement steps were severely cracked with weather damage down the sides and front. Dandelions and other weeds protruded from the deep splits. Even the molding on the windows had seen better days. Not in that decade, but maybe at some point in time. My heart rate sped up and I rubbed my hands on my pants. Ringing the doorbell, I waited. Then I knocked. Then I opened the screen door and knocked 4 to 5 more times. Okay, it was more like 9 times, but 4 didn't sound as pathetic. Looking through the window for any sign of life, I finally gave up when I saw there was no movement inside the home. My phone buzzed fast again, and I pulled it out, glaring at the face irritably. I swiped and checked in just to get the app to leave me alone. If I was at the wrong place, I would make sure they knew about it. Dead leaves and branches hung over the porch, tugging on my hair when I inspected the other windows accessible via the porch. I wasn't sure if I should wait on the porch swing until I noticed that the chain was rusted and pitted. I wasn't putting my butt on anything that couldn't hold it. Claiming a seat on the rotting steps, I wrapped my arms around my knees. I would have to wait. I didn't have any other choice. I pressed my clenched fist into my stomach when it growled again. I should have grabbed something at the airport. Even a $20 burger would have put something in my gut to stave off the ache. My hunger didn't hold off my exhaustion either. The jet lag was getting to me, and I blinked heavy eyelids. The heat certainly didn't help anything. I licked my lips. I wasn't going to be discouraged. My best friend's marriage had worked out from click and wed. Everybody had bumps in the beginning. Or should. I'm sure that's all it was. A misunderstanding. He'd probably get there and we'd laugh. I yawned and leaned my head against the post, watching as the neighborhood continued on. Nobody even knew or cared I was brand new from Arkansas. Nobody knew I was newly married and had never met my husband. Nobody knew how nervous I was. Chapter 4. Elizabeth. I squeezed my eyes tight before opening them. Someone gently shook my shoulder. I turned my head to see who it was. The evening sunlight crested down past the buildings around us, while the sun created a silhouette. Was the man my husband? Leaning forward on the hard cement step, I rubbed my eyes to see better and yawned, covering my mouth with the back of my hand. I'm sorry, miss. There's no loitering here. You need to keep walking. I think they have a shelter down a ways, but it's not near here. He was kind as he spoke, and I took that as a good sign. As his words penetrated my traveling fog, I blinked several times, startled. Are you Tyler Manning? Number, I'm his neighbor. He settled back onto one leg and folded his arms. What are you doing here? I'm his wife. I'm just waiting for him. I didn't have a lot of time to explain. It wasn't even that I didn't have time. It was more I didn't have the energy. I was hungry and tired and frustrated that my husband had completely abandoned me. You must mean Jay. He laughed and nodded his head like he had it all figured out. Because let me tell you, there's no way Tyler Manning is married. He's the consummate bachelor. Plus, if you were Jay's wife, which you're not, I would know because I've met her. All the different names mixed together, and the guy spoke in some kind of weird accent I'd never heard before, but That reminded me of Jim Seung, the laundromat owner back home. As the sun dipped even lower and left the world in normal lighting, his accent made sense. He had an Asian tinge to his skin and the nice black silky hair that the people from the Orient were so lucky to have. I rubbed my eyes again, sitting up straighter. I'm sorry. I'm really confused. We just got married. Are you saying he's a bigamist? I brushed the dust off my pants and stood, leaning against the post. I was not going to lean against the rickety railing. I waited for him to clear up the puzzle I couldn't escape. The neighbor twisted his head as he looked at me, mostly with one eye. Are you one of those college kids? Are you on drugs? His suspicion was starting to get on my nerves. I laughed, shaking my head. I wish. That would be so much simpler. I wish there was something that would explain what I'm doing here. I glanced at the house. I'm Tyler's wife. We just got married, 2 days ago? 3 days ago? I haven't even met him yet. It's hard tracking time today. The man jerked back, pulling his chin closer to his neck and giving himself an odd double chin appearance on a very skinny man. Tyler is married? No, you don't understand. He's really too busy with his business to marry anyone. I barely know the guy. And their mom lived here about 15 years. Jay, on the other hand, is a talker. That guy is more of a gossip than my old grandma. And that's saying something. I reached out my hand to introduce myself when a brand new navy blue Ford Mustang pulled up, parking on the street. My face slackened in shock. Who would do that? A Ford Mustang on the street? I wanted to throw up. Looks like your guy's here. I'll let you sort this out. The gentleman pointed towards the house next door and stepped down a couple stairs. I'm the neighbor. I'm sure I'll see you around. Thanks. He disappeared down the stairs and up the sidewalk behind a nice leafy bush. Oh, there was no confusion anymore. I was mad, and I was ready to say something to him. My husband. A man dressed in a double-breasted black pinstripe with a bright orange tie over a white dress shirt climbed from the dark blue Mustang and closed the door. The bleep-bleep of the car alarm and flashing lights when he pushed the alarm button felt like a boxing round bell, telling me it was time to start. I stepped down onto the next step and opened my mouth to let Tyler Manning know I did not appreciate being relegated to side business. But I didn't get the chance, which was saying something for me. I always got the chance. A man, who I could only assume was Tyler, rounded the front of the Mustang and started yelling at me before he even reached the driveway. You were supposed to wait for me. I missed 2 meetings looking for you. I walked the entire airport 4 times, and then I checked baggage, and then checked the taxi area. What were you doing? Obviously you were here. I did wait. What I wasn't going to do was deal with someone else's lies. If he had been there on time, he would have found me, especially if he did the things that he said he did. I thrust my finger toward the ground and stepped forward. Just enough, I put myself in a more stable stance, but not to pull me down or up the stairs. I was not giving up my higher position. I waited longer than I should have. I walked around looking for you. Then I paid for a cab ride from San Francisco to here. It wasn't cheap. Nothing about this whole thing has been very affordable. My stuff was stolen in the airport bathroom. You had all of my flight times. When I was coming in and where I was coming from. Why did you make me wait? I didn't have any other option but coming here. I wasn't sleeping at the airport. Something I said in the whole mess brought him up, and he stopped. Furrowing his brow, he pulled the phone from his pocket and swiped through, which just irritated me more. What was he doing playing on his phone in the middle of trying to figure out what was going on? I did not think any of it was funny. I was about to pick up a rock or tear off a branch from the bush beside me and throw them at him. He was lucky I didn't have any wrenches or pliers with me. I'm confused. I have your flight information right here. His voice trailed off and he dropped his hand with the phone in it to his side. Rolling his eyes, he leaned his head back. You went to San Francisco. I live in Oakland. Why did you go to San Francisco? This was not my fault, and he was not going to make it mine. He wasn't going to make me yell. Nope. Not right in that moment. The address I was supposed to go to is the one that is above your profile on the site. The one that is listed in San Francisco. which, by the way, is not even an address. Tyler gritted his teeth. The muscle in his jaw ticked. Oh, great. The address is my brother's. Well, actually, it's a convoluted mess of my brother's address. He shook his head and walked carefully towards me, his hand outstretched. I'm sorry, this was all my fault. I forgot to change the address after I got a match. I wasn't sure who was able to see what, so I left the initial addresses and stuff. Kind of like a private measure, if you will. I didn't realize it was going to cause a problem. I should have thought to change that. I'm really sorry. He was obviously chagrined, but I couldn't be sure how much. My frustration and tiredness had controlled my emotions, which wasn't normal for me. The move, traveling, and everything else piling on me combined together, and I really just wanted to go lock myself in the garage and beat something with a hammer. Preferably nothing living, but something made of a soft wood that accepted dents and dings easily. Tyler mounted the steps, moving closer to me. His skin was shadowed with late afternoon stubble, which only enhanced the strength of his jaw and the aristocratic shape to his cheeks. His nose sloped, and his eyes captivated me. What had I gotten myself into? The man exuded confidence and charm. I wasn't prepared to be disarmed by him. Keys he pulled from his pocket jingled when he moved toward the door. Why don't you come inside? We could at least get comfortable after a day like today. My frustration wasn't so easy to dispel. I didn't want to go inside with him. I was mad, and I didn't really have a way to vent. I need a minute. I don't want to go inside with you right this second. I realized I sound like a petulant child, but everything was out of my control. The only thing I had absolute control over was not going inside the house. He turned when he reached 2 steps below me, putting our eyes on the same level as mine. I thrust my jaw to the side and tried not to let my exhaustion rule me. Why not? You're going to stay out here the rest of the night? Whether he did it intentionally or not, his voice grew husky with our proximity, and his eyes scanned my face. Clearing my throat, I allowed my candor to speak for itself, which it usually did whether I wanted it to or not. Maybe. I just know I'm upset. At least I could get points for being honest, or I should. Nodding his head, my husband, who wasn't acting like my husband, nodded gravely. I'm Tyler Manning. Please, forgive my lack of manners. He held out a hand with square nails and a broad palm. We might want to start fresh, since we'll be living together for a while. He flashed a half smile which showcased white teeth and soft lips. I blinked. Was I going to keep being surprised by him? It would prove to be a long life with him. I'm sorry, it's been a long day. Plus, have you seen this place? He looked over my shoulder and took in as much of the house as he could from his position. Almost embarrassed, he nodded. Yeah, I've seen this place. I grew up here. But why would that have anything to do with you going inside? I promise, it's not dirty inside. He turned questioning brown eyes on me. His blondish hair had been cut short, but showed off the angles of his jaw. I was serious when I said he reminded me of the main guy in Suits. I couldn't remember his name for the life of me, even though I had a distinct impression that maybe I was married to the man. Why, indeed. Okay, let's, just for a minute, pretend like you can't see this place. Let me tell you what I noticed right when I walked up and then as I got closer. Now, if I was a buyer, these things would be a deal breaker, on their own. Add them all together, and you're talking about having some serious safety issues on your hands. I bet you're not having very many potential buyers, am I right? He didn't answer, just watched me with wide eyes as I spoke. I took that as a sign to continue. Arching my eyebrow, I cocked my head to the side and lifted my fingers to tick off the items as I listed them. I turned and pointed as I talked, warming to my topic. You have a sagging porch, which may or may not be from the support beams underneath. It may be from rotting wood. Hard to tell from here. There's a sign of more rotting support beams over there underneath your banister and your porch or balcony, or whatever you're trying to pass that monstrosity off as. There's cracked plaster all over the place, which may or may not be a sign of mold. You have rust anywhere there's metal. That's not good. You have cracked doors. Your hinges are unstable, and I don't think you need those keys. I bet I could jimmy that lock open with a pencil. The list is so much longer than that. I charge for consults like this, and let me tell you, I would actually stop right now, hand the inspection over to you, and tell you that your remodeling fee would probably be worth more than the whole house on the market. I'm not going to lie. He sighed, putting the keys back in his pocket and folding his arms. Okay, I can appreciate the honesty. That was a lot to take in, though. I've had more than my fair share of estimates, and not one of them was that thorough. You do this kind of thing back home? Are you into real estate or something? You've only seen the front stairs. He looked up, finally turning his back on the house and moving to take a seat on the steps. I watched him. What was he doing? He rested his elbows on his knees and dangled his hands between them. Well, if you don't want to come inside, what do we do? I've got work to do to catch up from today. You sure you don't need to take a shower or something? I arched an eyebrow. As attractive as he was, I wasn't confident in his mental stability. What man in his right mind asked a woman if she needed to shower and he didn't know her? Certainly not a sane one. I can go inside. I'm just warning you, I don't think I'll survive the night. Of course I was joking, but it took a special person to understand my humor. Plus, I was too tired to argue or even care. If I died while I was sleeping, so be it. Tyler gave me some quizzical looks. I ordered a pizza. I've got work to do, like I said. I put you in the upstairs bedroom with a big lofty area with a bathroom. You can have the entire upstairs for yourself. He stood and jingled his keys as he returned them to his pocket. Is upstairs okay? He took a few steps up and turned back to look at me as he waited for my answer. I was finally subdued. I hadn't gotten really much of any kind of reaction from him, and I had no idea what was going on in his head. Yeah, thanks. I tucked my thumb into the side of my fanny pack strap. I could get a shower and fall into bed. Maybe tomorrow I would wake up and realize I had never left Kansas. Or Arkansas, as it was. San Francisco was turning out to be the weirdest Oz I'd ever been in. Chapter 5. Elizabeth. I followed behind Tyler, who I couldn't help noting had not included in his click and wed profile that he had the body of a runner. He wore his clothes like they'd been made just for him. I forced myself to look away from his backside in case he turned, and caught me staring. But wait, I had that right? We were married, so I should be able to look at him all I wanted? Creepy? I couldn't decide, and as long as I was the one benefiting and doing the looking, it didn't seem that awkward to me. Inside the large home, I gasped at the original molding and the intricate little details which made older homes stand out with originality. Inset shelves spotted the interior walls like framed pictures. Hardwood floors that had been scratched over time covered the entire main level of the home. Is the whole place hardwood flooring? Some is carpeting, but underneath it, I believe, is wood. Tyler nodded distractedly, tossing his keys into a bowl on the table that was really less than what the house deserved in its cheap pine frame. Yeah, everything on the house is top-notch. Most of it just fell into disrepair. Very expensive disrepair. He loosened his tie and went to stand at the back door, looking outside as he rested his hands on his hips. Go and make yourself at home. We can talk later. He glanced over his shoulder and then turned back to the window. I'd been dismissed. I assumed I was supposed to go all the way up the stairs that climbed upward to my right. I didn't know what to say. Maybe he was still upset. Maybe I should still be upset. I wasn't sure. I just knew I was hungry and needed a shower. Since the pizza wasn't there, I'd opt to have the latter first. Trudging up the steps, I tried taking in every detail of my new home, which honestly didn't feel like home. 3 levels up, I finally reached the upstairs suite. Decorated in a mismatched style of contemporary and country, the room had a sensation like the most carefree of hippies, and most uptight of grandmothers had fought over which features would be highlighted between the beaded doorway hanging and the hand-quilted comforter on the bed. The bathroom ruled over the whole southwest corner of the floor. Set up in a triangle, the deep clawfoot bathtub was set on level with the windows on two sides. I wouldn't mind spending some time alone with that feature, even if I questioned the validity of the plumbing. A shower was what I wanted the most right then, though. Shedding my travel clothes, the only clothes I had with me, I turned on the water. The squeaking and groaning of water running through old pipes brought a smile to my lips. One thing I could do was speak the language of houses. We just understood each other. My new home was screaming for attention, and hopefully, I would have the chance to give it a little TLC. People called me the house doctor back home, which would have been the smarter business name instead of what I'd gone with. Oh, well, you live and learn. I climbed into the shower and groaned at the lack of shampoo. Just a bar of soap was all I had. Even my toiletries had disappeared with the blonde. But I didn't care, because the bar of soap smelled heavenly with a mix of coconut and vanilla and something else I couldn't define. But I wouldn't change for the world. After I was cleaned and dressed again in my travel clothes, I felt more like myself. I opened the bathroom door and stepped out into my room. The smell of pepperoni pizza enveloped me in, and I inhaled deep. How long had I been in there? Long enough for the pizza smell to reach through the entire house. The aroma pulled me downstairs as if it had grabbed my nose with a hook. Refreshed and ready to try again with my new husband, a phrase that was not going to be easy to say anytime soon, I smiled as I entered the kitchen. He was nowhere around, and my smile faded. The pizza box sat on the table with the lid open and two slices missing. There was no silverware or plates out, indicating I was welcome to eat. I was alone. Again. Slapping a smile on my face anyway, I blinked. Are you kidding me? Again, I got mad. I wasn't trying to be mad per se. But where had he gone? Was I expected to only take 3 pieces of pizza? Or 2? Was it safe to assume I was supposed to go find him and he had a piece for me? This only proved that he didn't know me at all, if he thought I was only eating 1 piece of pizza. I went into the kitchen and dug through the cabinets looking for plates. Paper plates sat on the lower shelf of the bottom cabinet beside the fridge. Pulling one out, I pulled a plastic fork from the box beside it. The kitchen was not set up like it was expected to be lived in. There were no pots or pans and hardly any food, which I did not count a box of golden grams as a staple. I claimed 3 pieces of pizza and put them on my plate. Finding Tyler and figuring out what was going on would be my first priorities. Taking a few bites while I stormed around the house searching was perfectly acceptable. My anger mounted with each step. Where was he? The dang house was huge, and the more I searched, the more I spied that needed to be fixed. He lived in a dang money pit. I'd never seen one so intricately deserving in Arkansas. This house was a potential gold mine. If only he'd take care of it the right way instead of little band-aids like wallpaper to cover the cracking plaster and paint over ruined tiles. I finally located him on the bottom level, which wanted to be a basement, but was too well lit to be labeled that way. The presence of that floor proved me right with my guess of 4 levels in the huge house. Even with all the flaws, the building was a beautiful home. Tyler hid in an office-style room on the bottom level, which must be directly below the kitchen, because there was a slider door that looked out on the grass and into the green yard out back. I opened my mouth to speak and realized he was on the phone. He moved his hands as he spoke, even with no one in the room. I don't want to. He paused. It wasn't part of the deal, Jay. He paused again, shaking his head and lowering it. Fine. I'll do what I need to do. Yeah, I know, but the next bet is going to be a zinger. He hung up the phone and tucked it into his front pocket. In his other hand, he held his plate. He picked up the pizza and took a bite, staring outside. I didn't announce myself, and I was frustrated beyond belief by that point. What was wrong with me, that he didn't want to even be around me? He ran away downstairs to get away. My expectations might have been skewed because of Alex and Jeremy, but I don't think standard chivalry was too much to expect. I'm not sure if it's a cultural thing, but this is not how a gentleman treats women, guests, or their new wives where I come from. I stepped into the office without knocking. I figured my accusation was bold enough to declare my intentions of not being ignored. He glanced over his shoulder at me, the angle of his jaw intriguing even as it ticked with frustration. I understand that you're upset, Miss Snyder. I'm not sure how else I can make it better. I apologize again. He looked away from me, back outside. It's Elizabeth or Lizzie, not Miss Snyder. I felt like I'd been dismissed again. What was wrong with me? He had signed up on this website. He had clicked I do. He didn't have to accept me. He could have moved on to the next one. He didn't even have to get on the website. He could have gone on one of those dating sites where they let you pick people instead of matching you. My anger started to morph into something more like pain, and I wasn't comfortable with that at all. Tyler was really ruining my experience. Alex had such a great experience. Okay, not right out of the gate, but at least he talked to her. I felt like I was getting cheated. Am I not what you were expecting or something? You don't think I'm pretty enough or something? I'm not quite sure where the confusion is here. You signed up for a wife. If this is what you were expecting and this is how you treat women, I can see why you had to go online to find one. I wasn't expecting anything. The first match that came up was you, so I accepted. That's all it was. He turned around and claimed a seat at the desk that dominated the room. I was not used to being flabbergasted. What? What you mean you clicked on the first one that you were matched to? The pizza I'd eaten roiled in my stomach and I suddenly felt queasy. He sighed, leaning his head back and pinching the bridge of his nose. After a moment of tense silence, he finally lowered his hand and lifted his face up to meet my gaze head on. Look, I don't want to do this. I lost a bet. I'm stuck in this house and I'm stuck in this marriage. We'll get the money back if we stick to doing the steps or whatever we're supposed to do. If I don't make it because I'm not available to do the steps, or if I missed anything, I'll compensate you for that, okay? I can't guarantee anything. Any marriage is just a huge inconvenience. It has nothing to do with you personally. I chomped my teeth while keeping my lips closed so he wouldn't see or hear it. I was nowhere near tears. What I was close to doing was picking up the stapler on his desk and slamming into his forehead. I maintained my control and ground out. What about my time? He pulled back and chuckled, as if I'd made a joke. What about it? What are you doing over in your podunk town? Probably nothing important if you could drop everything and come here, right? You'll get 6 months in California. It's not a hotel, but you can stay here for free, and you have the entire top floor to yourself. Sounds like a win-win to me. You realize you just minimized my existence before you, right? Even if that was perfectly acceptable, which it's not, the fact that you won't even consider taking this seriously makes your actions even worse. I'm not sure what you thought when you saw my profile picture, but I can guarantee I'm not a simpering woman who will fall down at your feet because you're a man. I took a deep breath, blinking pleasantly as I smiled. I hadn't raised my voice, and I wouldn't. He hadn't earned enough affection from me to raise my temper. That being said, I'll stay here, but I'm not interested in just shoving this to the side. I signed up for a chance at being happy. The fact that you signed up on a bet and clicked I do is disgusting. I would consider his offer. I would consider ignoring and forgiving the fact that he had just relegated me to some kind of female that hadn't been around in 50 years. I wasn't dependent on a man. I hadn't been dependent on a man. Ever. I wasn't going to start something that wasn't me just because I'd moved to California. His shocked expression gave me a simple shiver of satisfaction. I wasn't some pushover. No man was going to treat me like I wasn't important. Pushing my disappointment aside, I ignored my attraction to him, which I was horribly embarrassed to admit even to myself. I lifted my chin and arched my brow. I was too practical to let emotion determine what I was, or wasn't, going to do. Since we'd dropped all pretenses at our marriage, I slipped into business mode. You have a 3-car garage out there. Is it being used? Of course, I'd noted the garage space when I'd arrived. That was the only area I was interested in. He recovered his composure and leaned forward. No, I can't get the garage doors open. I don't want to pay to fix them if it isn't necessary. That's why I park on the street. Nodding, I lifted my chin. Can I use it? He lowered his eyelids to half-mast. You must not have heard me. It doesn't work. The only door you can get through is the man door on the side. I shrugged. I could get inside with the small door. Then I wouldn't have to pay anyone to fix the big ones because I was the one people called for that kind of thing. I don't care. That's all I'll use then. Sounds good. I don't care. He shrugged and did something to a laptop that sat in front of him. Being good with tools was my one conceit. I wasn't too prideful to think I could do anything out there. Anytime I got in front of a computer, it was for the basics, and even then, I wasn't completely comfortable. I had picked California. I chose everything back in Arkansas when I had made this decision on my own. True, everyone else had pointed me this way like Alex and Colin Davies, but I had made the ultimate decision to come to Tyler Manning. I could ignore my attraction to him. I was attracted to peanut butter and jelly, too. That didn't make a wedding, no matter how much I wanted it to be. I couldn't wait 6 months to do anything for myself. Since I'd chosen California, that was where I would settle. I would make my new business there. Maybe I would call my company the House Doctor. That might be exactly what I needed to do. Chapter 6. T. Eiler. The fire in Elizabeth's eyes was disconcerting and almost ruined the steam of Tyler's anger as he climbed from the dark blue Mustang. She met him head on. He wasn't used to people throwing wrenches in his offensive moves. But she brought Tyler up short, and it was humbling to realize that the mistake had been his. Her long brown wavy hair fluttered around her shoulders as she stated her frustrations. Where most women took on a shrewish hue when they were irritated, his wife had a glow. Tyler's pride kept him from telling her how frantic he'd been, near running through the Oakland airport looking for her from one security checkpoint to the next. He couldn't tell her he had called the police department to see if anyone had been brought in with amnesia. He'd called 5 hospitals to check if any recent admissions had come in with concussions or other head injuries. Why else wouldn't she try to contact him? Maybe she had amnesia. Maybe she didn't remember who she was. The possibilities were endless, and Tyler was willing to consider them all before losing his cool completely. All he knew was he hadn't been able to find her for 6 hours. The directions his imagination had taken him had made him absolutely nauseous. Even though it had been his fault, Tyler didn't have to add insult to injury and tell his new wife about the bet and his lack of interest in being married or having anything to do with the home. He'd been rash and rude, and if his father were alive, he'd take a paddle across his backside. If Ty would look past his pride and joy of bachelorism, he'd accept that the curve of her lip and the soft fold of her arm had captivated him more than he wanted to own up to. He didn't want to be married. He didn't want to be tied to someone he didn't know, and he didn't want to get to know someone he was tied to. Unfortunately for Elizabeth Snyder, that was exactly what happened. She was stuck in a perfect catch-22. Unless Tyler could get rid of her in some way without making her feel like he didn't want her around, he wouldn't be able to pursue anything with her. She had to be unavailable for him to want to chase her. The honest truth was, he was caught up in the intrigue of stupid mind games. Would he ever grow up? Jay had wanted Tyler to take the challenge head on, throw his all into it, but Ty hadn't realized what exactly he had lost in the bet. Tyler needed to ask Elizabeth if they were free to date other people. Did he have the guts to find out if they were truly going to be married, or if they wanted to treat it as a business contract? As he considered his options, he realized he didn't want to close things off with her. He wanted to cut off any chance with her about as much as he wanted to pursue anything permanent, either. Ty groaned, leaning back in the leather seat of his desk downstairs and swiveled in a half circle, back and forth, back and forth. What was he supposed to do? She was a beautiful girl with a smile that could make him forget why he was angry, make him forget why they were in the situation they were in. Ty didn't want to hurt her. He didn't want to hurt anybody. Unfortunately, he had a feeling that his carelessness was going to end in uncontrollable consequences. He loved mornings and was usually more productive before the sun was up. Tyler had already taken a shower and had a couple cups of coffee before leaving for the day. He didn't even know if Elizabeth was a morning person or a night person. That morning, he was certainly not going to wait and find out. The building they rented for his company, his baby, had tight carpet and wood wainscoting on the walls. Real plants in large ceramic planters spotted the office in corners and beside tables. Mac tapped Tyler's shoulder when he walked through the door. The early hours the norm for the group. "I'm in here earlier than you and we have a new baby." He laughed and shot his fingers at Ty as a pretend gun. Did the new wife come yet? He laughed and Ryan walked through the door with him. Tyler shook his head and ran his fingers through his hair. Yeah, I didn't realize people actually took this marriage thing seriously. You guys know that she actually wants to try to make it work? He needed someone else to understand the absurdity of it. Who did that? Put their future in the control of a computer program run by someone they'd never met. The teasing light left his friend's eyes. They glanced at each other, concern turning their mouths down. Ryan spoke for the both of them. You didn't explain it before you accepted. You could have described the situation in your profile or something. Why didn't you do that? Of course, people take this stuff seriously. I mean, you just married her for 6 months. Jay said it cost, what, $2,000? She was expecting to come and start a marriage. You can't do that to people. Did you tell her the truth? Tyler nodded softly, guilt ripping through him at the realization that he hadn't only been called out by his new wife, but also by his buddies. Doubt suddenly filled him. His choices and the severity of what he'd done slapped him across the face. Yeah, she was at the house on Staten Avenue last night. I got off the phone with Jay and came clean. Figured the more honest I was, the better, right? Isn't that the way to go? He looked to his friends for encouragement, approval, anything to take away the horrible, gnawing shame at what he'd done. Ryan covered his face with his hands, wiping them down his cheeks to drop off his chin. Number. In those types of situations, you don't want to tell her she's not wanted. What is wrong with you? She came to you all hopeful and unsure, and there you are, smashing her dreams. If you weren't the boss, I'd clock you right now. Don't bother. I feel terrible. I wasn't thinking. He hadn't thought any of it through. I lost that bet and allowed me to be wrapped up in my own stuff. I didn't think about anyone else. Tyler was a bachelor. Thinking about other people wasn't part of the job description. I think you should apologize and tell her that you'll try. Honestly, you should try. You owe it to her to give this thing a shot. She was matched to you. Maybe there's something there. I know you're all wrapped up in being the hottest bachelor, but sometimes we gotta put others before ourselves. Mac rubbed his eyes and shook his head. I don't envy you. Is she at least cute? Are you attracted to her at all? I don't care what Jay said. I wasn't going to accept anyone that wasn't attractive, and her pictures didn't do her justice. Nowhere on her profile did it say she was a spitfire. She lit into me when I finally got to the house. I've never been talked to like that by anyone, let alone a woman. Dang, if her spunk didn't intrigue him. Her tenacity won him over, and he'd caved easier than he thought possible with her demands for the garage. She'd claimed her things had been stolen, yet she hadn't been upset or crying or anything. Tyler didn't know if he should believe her or assume she was a little crazy. Okay, what do I do? Those guys were his closest friends. They wouldn't steer him wrong. You try. Tyler Manning has to actually have a relationship with someone. They both started laughing. In the gravity of the moment, he begrudged them their humor. You sure don't try to push her away like you do the other women in your life. This includes no insulting her or where she came from or her taste in things. They had him there, and Tyler didn't like it. Waving at them, he walked toward his office. Okay, that's enough. You had your laugh. I'll figure this out on my own. While he walked confidently away, he was afraid of turning into a little boy on the inside. He'd messed up, and he knew it. He wasn't sure there was anything he could do to pull out of it and make amends. Before throwing himself into the busy workday, Tyler couldn't help smiling at the memory of his wife pointing her finger and yelling. She had attitude which made her eyes sparkle and color flushed her cheeks. Yes, if they weren't married, Tyler would definitely ask her out on a date. Chapter 7. Elizabeth. I'm an early riser by habit, certainly not by choice. Every time I would do sleepovers with Alex when we were growing up, she always threw pillows at me because I was awake when the sun rose. Being in the loft of the huge home put me right in view of the sun as it crested from the east. I lay awake trying to figure out just what I was supposed to do. I was horribly attracted to my husband, who didn't want to be married, and who was chained to a home with more personality than most of the people in my hometown. There wasn't much I could do without my tools. The last text I had received the night before indicated the trucks would be at the house in a day or two. Absent tools didn't mean I was completely stuck, though. I had money from closing my business, and for the last 6 to 7 months, I'd stockpiled as much in my savings as I could. I'd decided to move to California. I had to keep reminding myself it was my decision. Good or bad, I was sticking there. If I could get a business going, then it would be my new home. Judging by the state of the neighborhood, there was some work to be had, and I had a lot of experience. All I needed to do was to find some people to spread the word. I was going with the house doctor. I couldn't wait to get it going. Hopefully no one else had taken that name already. I yawned, rubbing my eyes. I was tired, but I wouldn't go back to sleep. My fatigue wouldn't be escapable anyway. I didn't know what I was doing, and I wasn't settled. What was I doing? I was stuck in the clothes I'd traveled in, and I had really no way to make myself at home. It was hard to feel like you fit in when you weren't really welcome. And you knew it. Through my cracked window, the rumble of the Mustang's engine starting up jolted me to the side. I leapt from the bed and peered out the window. Ty pulled away from the curb. He hadn't said goodbye or anything on my first morning there. I turned around, deflated. How could I convince him to give us a shot if he wasn't even going to stay around? Alex had done the whole roommate thing. I wasn't interested. I wanted to skip all the dating stuff, but that didn't mean I had to sit there and wait around for some guy either. I wasn't the waiting type. What did that mean I could do? He said I could have the garage. I was going to go out there and see what it offered. No reason to waste time sitting around waiting for my husband to pay attention to me. After I took another shower and ate a cold piece of pizza from the night before, I made my way out to the garage. The cobbled driveway was riddled with cracks like the mortar had given up the fight and left behind the small rocks. Tucking behind the house like an alley, the driveway domineered the side road with little room for anyone to pass by. The Manning house had more property than most of the rest of the houses on the block. The garage hid partially under a large collection of lilac bushes and oak trees. Other fences abutted the sides of the rear of the garage. If I strained on tiptoe, I could get a good look into the neighbors' backyards. Tyler hadn't said there was a lock or anything on the doors. I took the chance he didn't keep anything in there because he couldn't use it, so he wouldn't care if it was locked or not. Twisting the doorknob, I squeezed my eyes shut and pushed open the door. It opened effortlessly with a slight squeak. I gasped at the light spilling through the glass panes of the garage doors and what it revealed. It wasn't clean by any standards. A fine layer of dirt and grime lay on every surface I could see, and most likely the surfaces I couldn't. I walked in the man door, which opened to the side against the wall. To the right and spread out in front of me was the most unique style garage I had ever seen. It was like it was designed for a woodworker, or someone who only wanted to use their tools and could care less if there was room for any vehicles. With minimal room to park a car, unless it was on the other side of the tool workbench, the garage deserved the title of shop more than garage. A counter space, 4.5 to 5 deep, ran the length of the wall. Underneath each counter, drawers and other types of shelving waited for tools and storage. Above the counters, while not cutting into the workspace on the surface, there were shelves and different types of canisters hanging from various cabinets across the way as well. I don't think I could count all the electrical outlets in less than a minute, maybe 10 minutes, and there were a few 220 volts in place as well. My welder would go perfect in that section. I could envision all of my electrical tools lined up in specific spots, and my 2 toolboxes, red and blue, my crowning glories right in the center back to back for easy access. I stood in the center of the dirty garage and had chills. The guy may not have been picked just right for me, but it was like Colin Davies had seen the garage and said, "I know Elizabeth needs this garage." I suddenly didn't mind about my problems with Tyler. If he wanted to use me to satisfy some bet, that was fine. I was going to use him to use that gorgeous garage. I snapped some pictures of the inside and texted it to Alex with a comment, Look what Click and Wed gave me. This could be the perfect home for me. I was suddenly filled with the jubilation Alex had mentioned when she was excited to see the business potential up there. I could do this. I didn't need Tyler to know what was going on. He wasn't interested anyway, no matter how much I wanted him to be. I needed the garage doors opened if I wanted the moving company to be able to unload my stuff. No matter how hard I tried, I would never fit my chop saw table through the man door. Even as an oversized 3-car garage, the space would be a tight fit for all of my tools. I didn't have many furnishings to worry about to store, so fitting the tools wouldn't be a problem at least once I got them organized. Until the movers got there, I had to do some serious cleaning and some serious repairing. Unwilling to wait, I pulled out the drawers, looking for something, anything I could use as a tool. The rattle in a drawer when I pulled the one above it open gave me a spark of hope in my chest, similar to the vibration I got when I'd seen Tyler for the first time. Best not to think about that. Could there be something in the drawer? I pulled it open and revealed a flathead screwdriver and a rusted hammer jolted around inside. The inferior tools weren't much, but I had done more with just one fork than I hoped to do with just a screwdriver and hammer. I pulled out the hammer and tucked the handle into the loop on my pants. I never knew when I could use a hammer. What I wouldn't give for a ladder, though. My phone buzzed and I pulled it out, swiping at the heart that appeared like a cold sore, plaguing me incessantly. "What do you want?" I muttered as I tried to figure out how to move around in the app. A red text box invited me to set up for the first step with my husband. We were supposed to take some kind of questionnaire. I pushed the home button on my phone and then messaged Alex. "Did you do these quirky steps that CNW keeps sending me?" Okay, it had only been one time, but I was getting annoyed by their constant contact. Why couldn't they just leave me alone? They were like a thorn and continually reminded me of what I wasn't having with my husband. A banging echoed from outside. I looked up from my phone for a minute and listened. Of course, it sounded like an amateur who didn't really know what they were doing. Rubber on metal. They were probably banging some kind of a hinge or piece to a fence. I could count on my hands and feet the number of times I had rescued people from breaking hinges because they didn't know what they were doing. Ducking out the door, I searched for the source of the noise. The man who had woken me, Ty's neighbor, wielded a mallet of some kind and hit it on the hinge of his gate like I had thought. "Hey, I wouldn't do that. Those are solid hinges. What's going on?" I approached cautiously with a screwdriver in my hand like maybe he was crazy and was going to turn on me next. "Oh, the wife. How are you? I'm just trying to get this gate open. It sticks all the time. So I decided I'm going to beat it into submission." He grinned but squinted at me with the seriousness of a man who'd had enough. "May I?" I motioned toward the gate and waited for him to back off while I looked at the handle. "You don't need to hit it. All we need is to adjust this right here." I screwed in the 2 screws that had come loose and straightened the latch on the door frame, squeezing the handle again. "There you go. That should work just fine." "How did you know to do that?" The neighbor opened and closed the gate a few times, his eyebrows lifted in surprise. The bushes peeking over the side of the fence were raspberry plants upon closer inspection. I smiled. "I'm a handy person. That's what I do. I can fix just about anything." I held out the rusty screwdriver and tapped the edge of the handle of the less than desirable hammer. "When I have acceptable tools. You wouldn't happen to have a Phillips screwdriver by chance? And maybe a ladder?" "Sure. Let me go grab those. I'll be right back." Before I could even thank him for considering, he ducked into a small tool shed about 5 to 8 feet away. He returned, lugging a small stepladder and a little red toolbox. It was possible he could have been giving me a box of candy with how excited I was to see that toolbox. He set the toolbox down and held out his hand. "I am Ronald Phelan." I grasped his hand and shook it firmly. "Thank you so much. I'm Manning, right?" He grinned, his black hair shiny in the sunlight. "Lizzie. Let's just go with Lizzie for now. I don't think Tyler really wants to be married, just like you said." I laughed and pointed at the hinges. "Do you mind if I just grease them a little? It doesn't take long, and will definitely improve their performance." Thank you. That would be great. He dug through the small toolbox and pulled out a small canister of grease, handing it to me like he had no idea what it was. I fixed his gate so it didn't squeak and closed the toolbox regretfully. I wished I could keep it, at least until mine arrived. I would just have to wait for mine and make do with the 2 pieces of rusted metal Ty left in the garage. Thank you. I appreciate you getting it for me. I looked longingly at the box. He pushed it toward me. Go ahead and borrow them. Did you say you needed the ladder? I'd forgotten my request and was suddenly grateful that I'd asked. That close to tools, and then to have them taken away, would have pushed my patience for my circumstances. Thank you. I did. Can I bring them back in a little bit? I'll be back after 7 tonight, so any time after that is fine. He scratched his nose and nodded, a shock of shiny black hair falling across his forehead. He reminded me of a kid with his lanky build and optimistic expressions. We parted ways and disappeared back into the garage. With the tools he had in the box, I could do more than just fix the garage door. I climbed the ladder and went to work. After just a few minutes, I had the garage door opening and closing manually. Someone had unplugged the garage door openers, and I reconnected them. Everything worked fine. I rolled my eyes at people's incompetence. There were a few things in the house that were driving me crazy, and I couldn't help but spend the rest of the day cleaning and fixing anything I came in contact with. For instance, the loose balcony connections were driving me nuts. There had to be some kind of a safety ordinance or law that was being broken, with those just being like they were. The loose hinges on the front door, and most of the doors in the house, fell under my tools. The leaking faucet in the kitchen took me less than 2 seconds to fix, and the kitchen itself needed to be cleaned. I was on a roll, and my motivation only fed on my productivity. Close to 6 o'clock, and I had gotten so much done. The garage was clean and ready for my tools, and the garage doors worked like brand new. I needed a shower after my busy day. Most likely I didn't smell the best. Was there any chance my clothes would get clean if I took a shower? I wondered how long it would take my clothes to get clean in the washing machine and dryer downstairs. Would I take the chance of running around naked in a house I wasn't welcome? Just the thought almost had me laughing out loud. Maybe I could just take a shower and wash my clothes with me. If I wringed them out as best I could maybe wear them damp. It wouldn't be comfortable, but if nothing else, it would be clean. I opted to try it. The bar soap was going to work on more than just me. Finger brushing my teeth was not doing it for me either. But what could I do? Go up and steal Ty's toothbrush? Which probably wasn't the best way to be trusted in the house. After my shower and in my damp clothes, that honestly didn't feel too bad, I made my way back down to the kitchen. It was almost 7, and I was starving. I was sick of pizza. There was nothing else to be had. Even the golden grahams weren't more than crumbs. I grabbed a piece of pizza anyway. The lights went on at Ronald's house, the sign I was waiting for to take him his tools. Down at the fence, I met him where he'd stopped by his raspberries to pick from the plant. I held out the red box, set it on the ground by his feet, and retrieved the ladder. Thank you so much. I really needed that. It was almost like a therapy session. I grinned, happier than I'd been since I left Arkansas. You're welcome. Did you want some dinner? The look in his eye hadn't been there the night before. I wasn't imagining his interest. I wasn't interested, and he was, which made things very uncomfortable. Not to mention I was newly married. Well, I did just get married, even though it was to a guy who isn't really interested. It's a little early for me to commit adultery. I laughed, but I said it firmly enough that I think he got the point. I hoped he got the point. So far, he was my only friend, and I didn't need to lose him this early in the game. He tilted his head and smiled. Let me know if you change her mind. I smiled and returned to the house. Closing the door behind me, I leaned against the hard oak panel and rubbed my head. I wouldn't have minded any kind of food, just not pizza. Ty's voice cut across my silence. Making friends? He stood by the kitchen sink, with a glass of water in his hand, and in a position that suggested he'd been watching out the window. I pushed away from the door and jerked my thumb over my shoulder while running my hand through my long brown hair. Yeah, Ty held up his hand, stopping me. No, it's fine. We aren't really married. Do what you need to do to pass the time. I stepped forward and braced my hands on the counter. Then let's just cut our losses now. I mean, you're not interested. I could be doing something more with my time, and you obviously don't want me here. Hurt and disappointment smothered my happiness at my productivity for the day. I barely knew Tyler, and his rejection burned more than I wanted it to. It has nothing to do with not wanting you here, Elizabeth. All it means is I can't fit you in my life. I feel bad I came across disinterested last night, or even uncaring. I have a tendency to only think about myself sometimes when I have a specific goal in mind. I know it's a fault and nothing against you. It's nothing personal. It's just how it is. It's just easier. He turned to lean a hip against the counter and crossed his arms. I don't have $2,000 to pay you right now. I don't want to lose my deposit either, especially if it turns out I'm more detrimental to my business being me. His sardonic smile hinted at more than just humor. I'm sorry. I know how hard that is. Always worrying about your company. I understood more than he knew. I had been so worried the first 2 years of running mine, I was going to lose it. Don't you have a manager? That had been my issue. I didn't have a manager. Yeah, I'm the manager. But I don't fit with the brand and people don't trust us. We go in and take over companies, restructure them. And when we're pushing the importance of family and keeping people in their roles, it's hard for them to believe us. Because I don't have a family. I'm awesome at being a manager, with the profits and losses, hiring and firing, and I can get accounts like you wouldn't believe. The brand, though, it's more important than you think. Unfortunately, I let the brand consume the business, and now I am a counterproductive piece of the puzzle. Can you sell it? That's what I had done with mine. I didn't say it, but I sold mine even though I knew the new owners would run it into the ground in no time. I had to separate my personal attachment from the business. He tilted his head, considering me. I honestly hadn't considered selling it. You might consider it before the brand eats up too much of your profit margin and you can't get what you deserve for it. That way you can come out ahead. The new owners can sink or swim. You never know. There might be another brand out there waiting for you. I hated being the overly hopeful person. Sometimes too much optimism was annoying. I was too easily swayed by the love it or leave it idea. Thanks, you gave me something to think about. Have you had anything to eat yet? He stepped back and revealed grocery bags behind him, probably 10. Hopefully, they were filled with food. I haven't eaten anything other than pizza. I feel it's only fair to give you a heads up that I don't cook. Like, seriously, I don't cook. I didn't mean to be so blunt, but we would starve if he expected me to cook anything in the kitchen. His chuckle sent a delicious shiver down my spine. Don't worry, I do cook and well. I just rarely have a reason to cook. He smiled softly at me and pulled off his suit jacket, revealing a broad chest and a well-fitted dress shirt. Rolling up the shirt sleeves of his white shirt, he twisted his arms, and dark blonde hair dusting his arms reflected the sunlight streaming through the windows. What type of a wife was more interested in what was underneath his shirt than what he was saying? The kind that was attracted to her husband. He flung his tie over his shoulder to keep it out of the way and smiled at me. I'm going to teach you how to make my famous goulash. Hopefully you're not allergic to burger or potatoes or onions, because that's pretty much all that's in it, and it's delicious. He pulled out a bag of potatoes and eyed me suspiciously. You know how to wield a knife, though, right? Or a potato peeler? I laughed. Yes, but there are no utensils in this whole kitchen. Oh yeah, they're in the pantry. We were trying to sell this place for a while, but can't get it to sell. He moved to the pantry and pulled open the door. Inside, numerous bins had been stacked on top of each other, but I hadn't noticed them when I was digging through the drawers and closets. You're not going to be able to sell this place. Not like it is. You need some serious renovations. Even if he did them, why would he sell this place? I could tell it was a landmark, or should be. It was so gorgeous. If he took care of it, the home could probably be registered as a historic place. I didn't mention what I'd done that day. He would notice or he wouldn't. It didn't matter to me. I knew what I had accomplished, and I was satisfied. Yeah, it's turning out to be a bigger pain than I thought. Sorry you have to be shackled to it, too. He offered me a side smile that was more apologetic than flirtatious. But either way, I would take a smile from him. Was it sad that I just wanted to smile at him all night? I had a feeling that our time was short. I'm not sorry. Would he hear the invitation in my voice? The need to connect in some way to the man I had married? He wasn't interested because of his business. I was second to his company. My phone double buzzed in the annoying pattern I was growing to despise. I pulled the cell from my pocket. Do you get these annoying reminders to do the steps together? There's a questionnaire we're supposed to do. Would you be able to sit with me and do it so the thing will leave me alone? I felt stupid asking, but I'd reached a point of desperation. He screwed his lips to the side and squinted. Yeah, sorry, I have work to do. Maybe we can try tomorrow. His expression all but screamed not in this lifetime. Tyler couldn't even take a few minutes to do the questions with me because of his job. I wasn't a fan of being second. Chapter 8. T-Weiler. Elizabeth's interest in the garage had piqued Tyler's. She was out there when he'd returned from work, so he'd listened for when she got in the shower upstairs before making his way to the garage. Opening the door, Tyler let himself in and flipped on the light. He was astonished at the cleanliness to the place. A stack of notes sat on the counter where the late Mr. Manning, his father, used to work. Tyler ran his fingers along painted wood and could almost imagine him there, sitting and talking about his projects. On top of the stack of paper, one pad had a pencil sitting at an angle. In the upper left corner, a hand-drawn logo of a hammer and a screwdriver forming a cross sat next to block letters spelling the house doctor. His little wife was starting a business. As what? She didn't have any skills that he was aware of. Not that they knew each other very well. Tyler hadn't really gone out of his way to get to know her. He'd told her point blank he wasn't interested. Not knowing her was his fault. But as he caught glimpses of her personality and talents when he made the effort, he couldn't help being impressed by her. The house doctor. He tapped the pad of paper and looked around the empty garage. Interesting. He didn't have a lot of time. She wasn't like most women and didn't stay in the bathroom for hours on end. Leaving the garage, Tyler made his way to the office slider, ducking inside and closing the door. Watching the garage, he contemplated what he was uncovering. In only a few minutes, she walked into view, the object of his musings. She escaped into the shop door and didn't even look to see if anyone watched her, or to see if anyone was out there. After her shower, she was still wearing the same clothes he saw her arrive in. Maybe she didn't have any sense of fashion. Tyler hadn't seen any luggage when she'd arrive, so maybe things really were stolen. That thought made him cringe. He had to tamp down his prejudices. He had thought for sure she'd been striving for dramatic effect. He didn't know her, and he had jumped to assumptions. He didn't like feeling guilty. Turning from the window, he ignored Elizabeth as she ducked from the garage and ran up the steps to the back door of the house. If she wanted him to know, she'd tell him. Far be it for him to force her to tell him something she wasn't willing to tell. Plus, he'd lived with his mom long enough to know that a woman would do extraordinary things to protect her heart. The app continued to buzz on his phone. Her reminder to do the questionnaire felt like another nagging moment from the app. How was Tyler supposed to become interested in his wife when he was being told to? He was getting locked into a hole of expectation and he couldn't breathe. What would he need to do to get free? Chapter 9. Elizabeth. Knowing what I knew about Tyler and his business, I opted to keep my own business a secret, at least for the time being. Plus, I wasn't willing to face any prejudices, because I was a girl. I didn't know Tyler well enough to put my dreams out there between us. While I couldn't guarantee success for me, I knew for a certainty maintenance work was in demand. People always needed things repaired. Even during the end of the world, people would still need things fixed. Each morning presented an opportunity to see Ronald when I went out to the garage. He had fast turned into a friend that I looked forward to visiting with after only a couple of days. I paused as I was stopped by his gate to say good morning. Hey, Ronald, do you know anything about starting a business in California? Like a handyman business? My friend stopped picking raspberries and scrunched his lips to the side, narrowing his eyes. I believe that's considered a contractor state license, but I'm not sure. I can look into it for you, if you want. The company would need a name, insurance, and a logo, I believe. Shifting my weight to the side, I nodded. I think I want to call it the House Doctor. I wish I had used that name in Arkansas. I watched lazy clouds puffing overhead. What do you do? I'm on disability right now. I used to be a mechanical engineer and supervisor for Hewlett Packard. I hurt my back. I get bored most days now. He smiled, but it had a shade of gravity to the curve. If you need any help, let me know. I just can't get paid for it. He lifted his basket. I take this down to the market and sell it on Saturdays. People like fresh jams and stuff. Ronald shrugged, and I couldn't tell if he was ashamed or just matter of fact. His help would be exactly what I needed. I twisted my lips to the side. I'll tell you what. Let me get some business stuff drawn up. If you know of some kids in the neighborhood who would be willing to pass out flyers on doorknobs, and you get me some jobs, I'd be happy to pay you under the table. That would help with growth, having someone doing some marketing for me. I winked and headed to the garage. Think about it. I will. His voice was already lighter and more optimistic. The house doctor was the name which had stuck with me the most. I made a list of things I needed to do, like set up a separate phone line, look into insurance, get the logo of the name made, find out more about the contractor state license. There was probably a board for it or something, and start looking for jobs. Oh, wait. I needed my tools first. They were supposed to arrive that day or the next. I was anxious to get my stuff back. I didn't have a car to drive around in, which made me even more anxious. I wanted to explore or have the capability to run to the store if I needed something. I had no tools to fix things properly. There was a huge hole in the wall in my bedroom, and I couldn't fix it because I didn't have my plastering tools. No matter what Ronald had fit in his toolbox, it wasn't enough for me to fix a wall. While I waited for the truck, tools, and the rest of my clothes to arrive, I would be able to get started on the business stuff. It was the next morning when my truck and stuff got there. Tyler had already left. He liked to keep his mornings early as well, and I had gone through another washing of my clothes. I hadn't told Tyler what I was dealing with because he hadn't asked. We kept our conversations kind of formal. When the big delivery trucks pulled up with my rig on a trailer behind an enclosed box truck, I jumped up and down and squealed. Dang, right, I did. This girl wasn't a crier, but get me excited, and I'm squealing like a pig at the trough. I ran down the steps as fast as I could and hugged the guy who'd stepped out of the cab. I was breathless, but that didn't keep me from talking fast. I'm so glad you're here. I've missed my things. Can we leave the Dodge out here on the road and bring the rest back to the garage? You brought someone else to help unload, right? I glanced around, looking for someone else. Yeah, he's in the truck filling out paperwork. The driver pointed toward the feet I could see through the glass window on the lower part of the driver's side door. Okay, let's get this going. I'm so excited you guys are here. I had already said that, but I didn't care. Tyler wasn't around for me to gush at. Not that I would. The chance to see someone besides myself and the neighbor, even as good a friend as Ronald was turning out to be, wasn't one I was going to pass up. In moments, we unloaded my Dodge, and I parked it on the curb as close to the front of the house as I could. I'd missed its leather insides and the canopy with its shiny edges and clean lines. Both men unloaded the truck rapidly, but not in an organized way. My toolboxes were shoved where I would put my acetylene tanks, and my saw table had been pushed over by the wall. I winced as they rocked my welder back and forth, trying to get it down on its table. Overall, though, I didn't care. I was so relieved when they finally pulled out of the drive. I hurriedly closed the garage doors in case Tyler decided to drive up early. He still didn't know that the doors worked. I would be spending the rest of the day organizing my shop. I stood by the door with my hands on my hips and just relished in the presence of my things for a bit. My dresser taunted me from the far side. I grimaced when I realized I forgot to have them take my house things inside. No matter, I really just wanted my clothes. There was a much nicer dresser upstairs. Maybe I could turn my original cheap dresser into a new toolbox of some kind. Maybe to hold my painting things? I grabbed a cardboard box filled with odds and ends and emptied it onto the workbench. then pulled all of my clean clothes from the dresser and shoved them into the box. I didn't really care what else was in there for the moment. I really just wanted fresh, clean clothes I could work in. I ran upstairs and changed into some cropped at the shin overalls. No way would I call them capris. The weather was cool enough I could get away with a t-shirt and not a tank top, but I would have to do my welding at night when the heat had lowered even more. I wore long sleeves and long pants when I welded. I don't know if I could handle a lot of heat in the welding area. I couldn't wait for my business to get started and off the ground. Chapter 10. Elizabeth. 2 days later, and the garage was perfectly organized. In between the placing and hanging and organizing, I'd carved out time to get my work stuff done. My license was going on file, and I had my business phone added to my current account and just had to carry around an extra phone. Having my truck had drastically freed me up to get things done. I had gone out and gotten so many things accomplished. Ronald had distributed the brochures I had made at a local print shop. After discussing rates with Ronald, I went with prices that were 15 to 20% higher than my rates in Arkansas. I still couldn't believe my good luck in finding such a good friend. I'm surprised Tyler hadn't divested himself of that relationship. However, considering he was never home, I wasn't really surprised. Tyler was due to be home in just a little bit, but I wasn't worried. I was in the garage and I'd left him a note that I was out there doing some things, but I hadn't gone into detail. If he wanted to know more, he was welcome to ask. Ronald had hired 4 neighborhood boys to deliver brochures. They'd gone around that morning since it was late start for their school. It was too early for calls, but I was hopeful it would be soon. Maybe next week. Organizing my tools gave me a peaceful feeling. I messed with the 3/8" ratchet wrench and couldn't decide if I wanted to put it on the side or start a new row in a different drawer. The business phone buzzed. I glanced at it and then looked back at my tools. Then I froze, excitement welling inside me. The business line rang. That was so fast. I took a deep breath and answered it calmly. The house doctor, how can I help you? Was I too perky? Should I have lowered my voice some? Maybe next time I should say thank you for calling. Hi, I got your brochure on my door today. I'd like to get a consultation. Was that Tyler's voice? That couldn't be him, except it sounded just like him. I cleared my throat and went for a deeper tone. Did he recognize me? Of course. What's your address? And what do you want us to look at exactly? Anything in particular that needs fixing? I turned to my record-keeping book I'd bought the day before and poised the pencil over the paper. The address is 386 Staten Avenue. I've been trying to sell the house and I can't even get people to look at it. All I need to know is what to do to make it more marketable. Whatever I need to do, I'd like to know. Can you also add an estimate of costs and timeline for any repairs? I'm looking to get this done immediately. He was friendly but professional on the line. One more trait to add to my list of things I liked about him. It was most definitely Tyler. He'd called my business on the first day of my soft launch. What were the odds? One of the boys must have put a brochure on the front door, unaware it was where I worked. I was fairly certain Tyler worked every morning. Sure, we can do the consult tomorrow morning. Will you or someone be available? I knew he would be gone, so it was a fairly safe question. Closing my eyes, I hoped against hope he would say his wife would be there. I didn't hold my breath, because he'd made it clear how he felt, but still, I won't be there, but someone will. What time should I let her know? He maintained the same level of friendliness, and I wanted to flirt with him, but I was nervous to do so. So fast he would be off the line and I wouldn't get another chance. Oh, a woman. Okay, that's disappointing. I added a soft lilt to the last line and then rolled my eyes at myself. What was wrong with me? Ahem, I'm sorry. Let's set the appointment for 10. I deserved any comeuppance that came my way. His soft chuckle curled my toes and pulled my lips together between my teeth. Sounds great. Thank you. Of course he thought I was crazy. I thought I was insane. Plus, what game was I playing? He had to recognize my voice. Maybe he'd say something when I went inside. Maybe he was waiting for me to say something. I locked up the garage and went to the house. anxious to see Tyler and see if he had recognized my voice. How could he not recognize mine? But I could recognize his. Probably because I was the last person he expected of running a handyman business. I, on the other hand, hadn't been expecting anything, so it had been easy to accept that he might be calling. Plus, I'd seen his house. Tyler stood at the kitchen counter, which seemed to be his favorite place. He smiled when I walked in the door. Hi, I was just going to come looking for you. I thought maybe a picnic for dinner would be nice. That is, if you're interested. His invitation took me aback. I hadn't been there very long, and he hadn't really seemed interested in spending time with me. Tyler was always too busy, and I accepted that. Hadn't he said quite plainly that he didn't want to be married or in that house? Just because he'd said that, however, didn't mean I was going to walk away from the opportunity to spend time with him. He didn't have to be interested. But I was. Did that make me desperate? I agreed to go with him, even understanding that I might come across as desperate. Tyler's gaze roved my form, and he lifted his eyebrows. I like the outfit. Is it new? His own suit and tie fit him well, and I don't think I'd ever get sick of seeing him dressed like that. I laughed, shaking my head. No, my stuff finally got here the other day. I haven't seen you, or I would have told you. That's great. I'm so glad. I've been doing late nights, I know. I'm sorry. Did you see the truck out front? I wonder whose it is. Dodge is one of my favorites. Rigs are more expensive to run here than you'd think. They take up a lot of room, too. That's why I went with the Stang. Dodge or Ford didn't really matter as long as it wasn't a Chevy. He winked and turned towards the front door. Secrets grew around me. I wasn't sure what to say. Did I tell him it was my truck? Because at that point, if I told him it was mine, after he just said they weren't sensible to have in California, what would that make me look like? I kept my mouth shut. Having a topic to talk about around Tyler was getting to be harder and harder. He loosened his tie as he headed toward the front door. I thought we could just pick up some chicken and sides. Are you ready, or do you need to change? Nah, I'm fine. Unless you want me to change? It hadn't occurred to me that I might not be dressed up enough for him. A picnic sounded suspiciously romantic, and I was sure he just wanted something from me. He turned at the foyer before pulling the door open and studied me from head to foot again, this time more attentive. After a minute, he returned his gaze to meet mine, and his words distinctly warmed me. I think you'd be foolish to change when you look so good. My breath shortened, and heat flooded my face. Thanks. I had married a man who knew how to make my knees weak, but he wasn't interested. He turned from me and led the way to his car. We picked up chicken and some sides. Tyler produced a blanket from the back of his car when we got to Lakeside Park along Lake Merritt. We tread quietly along the blacktop trails, which wended further into the grassy landscape. Trees lined the walkways and sitting areas. Tyler walked toward the grass beside a large gazebo-style building with Roman-like columns. Bike riders passed us on the left, and Tyler reached out and grabbed my elbow to pull me closer to him. Careful! These people can go pretty fast. He pointed to a spot further in from the gazebo. How about over here in the sun? I've been locked up in the building for so long, I'm getting vitamin D deficient. He spread out the blanket, and we settled on the cushion of soft grass beneath it. As we picked out pieces of chicken and passed them around to each other, Tyler spoke again. Have you heard of a handyman company called the House Doctor? I know you just moved here, but I thought maybe you had seen something when they put a brochure on the door today. He dug his plastic fork into the mashed potatoes and gravy. Oh, I heard from Ronald that it's owned by a woman. Is that true? I wasn't sure if Tyler was sexist or not, but right then was a perfect time to find out. Really? I spoke to a really friendly lady today. I wonder if that's her. He took a drink of his pop and leaned back on an arm. Speaking of our neighbor, are you seeing Ronald? I jolted backwards, blinking rapidly. That's rather random. No, I'm not seeing Ronald. You and I are married. I was repeating that fact to him over and over, like maybe he forgot it like a child whose turn it was to do dishes that wouldn't do them because they forgot. He waved his hand towards me and took another bite of mashed potatoes. Yeah, but not really. I don't want you to miss out on stuff because of me. It's not your fault we're stuck together for 6 months. His dismissal of our relationship led me to believe maybe he was the one seeing other people. I didn't want to ask, but I had to, and the words came out before I could rethink them or control my mouth. Are you seeing someone else? Number I just. He looked at me, tilting his head to the side, his neatly trimmed hair begging for me to caress the short length. Would you care if I was? He kind of laughed, but there was curiosity in his tone. I shrugged, embarrassed that I'd been shunted into the jealous wife category before securing any interest on his side. I guess not. But I really cared, because even though it felt like we weren't really married, and it felt like we weren't even really dating, Alex had gone through the same thing. I had to believe that Tyler and I needed to start somewhere, even if starting as friends was the only way to go. I took a bite of my coleslaw and chewed it for a moment. I swallowed and asked, "How is your company doing?" He picked up a biscuit and leaned forward, his elbows on his knees as he ate. Well, I've thought a lot about what you suggested. I've decided to offer the company to my CFO. He fits the brand more, and he's been with me since the beginning. I'm confident he can take it forward and grow it further than I would be able to. It doesn't make it any easier to part with, though, you know? Tyler smiled sideways at me, revealing a glimpse of vulnerability he'd hid until then. What will you do? It took a lot to admit that you couldn't do something with your company. The fact that he was stepping forward and not letting his pride get in the way said a lot about the man he was. My attraction to him skyrocketed. Dang it, I think I was getting a crush. I don't know. I'm stuck in this house with you for 6 months. He claimed another bite of biscuit and looked at me as if expecting agreement and consoling remarks. I grimaced, unable to agree with his sentiment. Ouch. Don't hold anything back. I tried to hide the sting, but wasn't very successful. Tyler's eyes widened, and he leaned forward, placing his fingers softly on my bare forearm. He glanced down at his hand and jerked his hand back quickly. I'm sorry, I didn't mean it that way. I stopped eating and pierced him with my gaze, uncomfortable with how much his touch affected me. Yeah, you do. Just be honest with me. Tyler changed topics as if the truth was more pressure than he wanted to deal with. He picked up a chicken leg. What have you been up to while I'm gone? I wasn't surprised he hadn't noticed the house had been getting slowly fixed and cleaned up. Of course, he wouldn't know I've been doing my business either, but that's because I had opted to keep everything a secret. I wasn't the type to seek attention or accolades. I wasn't going to start right then. I'm just learning the neighborhood, settling in. I kept it vague because it was my thing to do. If he wanted to be more involved in my life, then he would be. Tyler watched me. Out of the blue, as if he'd been thinking about it for a while, he blurted out, "You have amazing eyes. I've never seen brown eyes so clear, like amber." His compliment caught me off guard while splashing even more confusion over my emotions. I wrinkled my nose and grinned. Thank you. I didn't know what else to say, which was too bad because a woman should know how to thank her husband for a compliment with a modicum of grace. Would he start to see me as I was? Chapter 11. T. Eiler. Maybe she had recognized Tyler's voice when he talked to her. Finding her flyer on the doorstep suggested maybe she didn't want him to know. He was fine with that. He wasn't encouraging them to be close anyway. Her omission wasn't a complete lie anyway. He'd been raised by a single mom because his dad died when they were young. He recognized the protective instincts when he saw them. Tyler appreciated the effort she put forth to protect the both of them by keeping her heart tucked away instead of wearing it on her sleeve. He only wished he could do the same. Talking to her on the phone and pretending not to know her had given him more insight into what she really thought. The way she wore her professionalism, and the way she lilted her voice at the end of speaking, almost like in a question, had him convinced he had shorted them both at the start of their relationship. If he could do it over, he'd try harder to be a little less honest and a whole lot more of what she wanted. Knowing she was the house doctor would set up a lot of opportunities to have some fun with her until she told Tyler just exactly what it was she was up to. He didn't know how far he could push her before she would tell him, But she had just taken this situation of being anchored down and stuck and turned it into a game. The term bachelor had a lot of connotation, but the biggest trait was the ability to enjoy the chase. Tyler was going to love playing games with his wife, like a chase. Wasn't that what it was all about? The chase was going to be especially intriguing when the woman he chased had lips which curved just so, and eyes that lit up when she saw him. Her brown hair went to mid back, and he wanted to reach out and run his fingers through it multiple times. Maybe, if she didn't know that he knew about the house doctor, maybe the woman he spoke to on the phone as a professional would let him in a little bit closer to the woman he lived with. They had 6 months for him to try to find out. 6 months to see if he could get closer. Chapter 12. Elizabeth. I came down for breakfast. I'd taken to eating the cereal that was up in a higher cabinet. Ty was a simple eater. He didn't have anything extravagant, which I appreciated. We seemed more matched than I originally thought. Unless he was eating out a lot, and I was just trying to convince myself of everything that might put us together. Great. I had it bad. I stutter-stepped at the bottom of the stairs at the sight of Tyler standing at the slider with a cup of coffee in his hand. The part that shocked me was his wardrobe. He wasn't wearing his normal business suit, which threw me off. I'd never seen him in anything but a suit and tie. Right then, he wore charcoal slacks and a V-neck cream t-shirt. His cologne could convince me to jump off the roof of the house if that's what he wanted. Glancing out the slider over his shoulder and then toward the front door, I couldn't figure out what the plan was. Had Casual Friday switched to a different day? Good morning. Are you not going to work? He turned to partially look at me and then returned to look out the window as I came up beside him. Drinking from his mug, he answered, I'm working on the sales contract, but I'm going to do it downstairs. I figure that's better for me to step out for the day, so he can realize just what he's taking on. I just made the decision yesterday and discussed it with him. Honestly, I kind of need a break today. What are you up to? I looked around the house. I had actually been planning on doing a consult, but if he was there, I couldn't do it. Rats and rabbits. He wasn't supposed to be there. I just have some things to do. I'll be around. Pouring myself a bowl of cereal, I ate it quickly and then ducked out to the garage. I could organize my calendar, but I couldn't do much if he was going to be home all the time. I hadn't thought this through. I didn't want to have to pencil in waiting for owner to leave. I twirled around on my tall stool and tapped the pencil on the work surface. The business line rang after about 30 minutes, and I nearly fell over. Was it Tyler? I wasn't prepared to tell him why I wasn't coming. I felt like he'd lied to me about why he wasn't going in. Not that I could blame him. I was lying like a rug. Hello? Was my trepidation blatant? Or was I doing something successful finally? Yes, hello. This is Tyler Manning. We spoke about a consult this morning at 10. He was hesitant, like a man calling a woman with something other than business on his mind. I looked out the window, spying him standing in the downstairs office slider. We were almost on level, but I think because of the direction of the sun, he didn't see me. I ducked out of the way just in case. Hello, Mr. Manning. I was just about to call you to reschedule. We had a plumbing emergency with another client, and that had to take precedence. I apologize. Would you be okay with that? That'd be fine. Are there any other openings today? I'd like to get it done as soon as possible. His voice took on a disappointed undertone, which left the part of me with a crush, oddly happy and sad at the same time. I flipped the pages of my empty calendar. Today? Yes, we are full. Like I said, this emergency put us back. I can shuffle tomorrow's appointments, but I won't know what time until the morning. I'm sorry for the inconvenience. Shoot, I'm going into work tomorrow. His dejection didn't dim my relief. We sat there in silence for a moment while considering our options. Staring at the desk space in front of me, I wished he would realize it was me, and I could just go inside and get started. Why wasn't he thinking of me as an option anyway? I couldn't be the only one thinking of the other in this relationship, even if it was a relationship he didn't want. I spoke up. Did you say last time we spoke you had someone that would be there? Yes. His discomfort was palpable, which sparked my curiosity further. I braced my elbow on the counter and tried not to get frustrated with him. We were married. Why couldn't he own it? Is it your wife or your girlfriend or someone else? Well, it's complicated. He hesitated, and I was losing my humor about the whole thing. Maybe I shouldn't take the job, even though I didn't have any others calling. Oh, boyfriend? I was having fun now. For whatever reason, he didn't want to admit that he was married or that the person going to be there was going to be a girlfriend or whatever. I wasn't stupid. He was interested in the phone me, and the wife me was horribly hurt. But the phone me enjoyed his attention and discomfort very much. His inability to see that I was one and the same was affecting how I saw myself. This couldn't be good. Tyler spluttered on the other end of the line. Number, I mean, I like women. It's not bad. I. Mr. Manning, can someone meet us there? I'd lost my patience, and wife me brought me up short. He sighed. Yes, I'll make sure. I would like to be the one that's here. I feel like I should meet you by now, you know? If I can't, I'll make sure someone is here. Perfect. I avoided his blatant come on. I'm going to shoot for 10 again tomorrow, but I can't guarantee anything right now. I'll write up an estimate and an inspection report and send it to you via email as soon as it's ready. Do you have any questions? If he asked me out, I might walk across the drive and clock him one with my mallet. No, thank you. I'll talk to you sometime tomorrow. He'd flirted with the phone me and hadn't recognized my voice. Was it worth it to pursue things like I was as his wife? Or would I be better off just telling him who I really was and moving out? Chapter 13. Elizabeth. In Tyler's mind, I was just Elizabeth. Then, on the flip side, he also knew me as a different person. He didn't know her name, but he flirted with her on the phone. For him, it wasn't confusing. But for me, I couldn't be more lost. I yawned as I climbed down the steps the next morning. I'd moved to California and watched my sleep go right out the window. Even with a new business to keep me busy and so many things going on, the fact that I couldn't get my husband to fall for me weighed on my mind. What bugged me even more was that the phone me could get him. The me on my Click and Wed profile got him, but me. The me that he knew in person, that me wasn't one he had any interest in. The blow to my self-esteem was severe. If he didn't find me attractive, how was it fair for me to find him attractive? I didn't like desiring him or wanting to be around him. It was like me and a tiramisu. I knew it didn't want anything to do with me, but oh, how I wanted to eat it right up. How desperate was I that I was comparing my husband to my favorite desserts. I expected Ty to be at his office helping again on the day of the consult, but instead, he sat at the kitchen counter sipping a cup of coffee and checking his watch. This was getting old. Are you waiting for something amazing to happen? I wandered in behind him and poured myself a cup into the mug I'd claimed as my own. We both liked our coffee black without sugar or cream. One more thing for me to add to the pros list. Of him and I being together. No. Well, the house doctor is coming to work on the house. Or, I guess rather to look at the house. The one that was supposed to be here yesterday? She'll be here today. There's a consult for a handy person to come in and see what else we need to do to the place. Are you still okay letting her in? He looked uncomfortable, and I couldn't help but scream at him in my mind that the woman he was waiting for was me. I'd be happy to take a look at the house for you, I offered while leaning against the counter, my hip pushing on the edge of the counter. I sipped my drink and watched him over the edge of my cup. He furrowed his brow and turned his gaze on me. No, that's okay. I'm going to have some professionals do it. Thanks for the offer. It was as if he tried to hide the smirk in his voice, but I heard it. And it wasn't the first time I had been exposed to the male chauvinistic ideals. I tapped his shoulder as I walked around him, heading to watch out the slider. Careful, Manning. Your chauvinism is showing. I didn't say anything chauvinistic. He followed me with his eyes, his body forced to turn as he faced me in the dining area. I put the mug on the table and placed my hands on my hips. Frustration from our relationship mounted inside her and compounded onto the sexism. You didn't need to. You said a woman is coming and she's going to look at the house. What makes you so sure? She's good at what she does. How do you know she will have the knowledge to take care of the cracking in your plaster or the disintegration of the driveway? What if she can't fix the plumbing or the siding? His jaw slowly dropped as he stared at me. You know all that stuff? I trailed my finger on the counter, suddenly embarrassed that I might have brought too much attention to myself. I had a grandpa who was into real estate. It wasn't lying, but it certainly wasn't a confession either. I dropped my attack fast. His gaze hit me hard, like he knew I was hiding something, but he couldn't put a finger on it. I covered my mistake with a quick, "Okay, that sounds good. I'll be here most of the day." My only job so far was his house. If he had the budget, it would be a pretty solid job. If I could keep my true identity under the radar, any more slip ups because of my pride, and I'd reveal myself before the sun was up in China. Tyler shook his head and drained the rest of his coffee. He rinsed the cup in the sink and set it on the side of the sink. He smiled as if I hadn't just called him out. "Okay, thanks. They're supposed to be here at about 10. Will I see you tonight?" Was that a guilty look on his face? I hadn't known him long enough to recognize what his looks or expressions meant. But I was a woman, and I could spot guilt on a man's face faster than I could spot chocolate frosting on a cheesecake. Cheesecake. My emotional turmoil was going to make me fat. I was an emotional eater, and I was nowhere near a bakery. Sure. I was curious about his expression. Was he guilty of something? And since I knew what he was doing on the back end, I couldn't help but wonder if I was guilty too. With a pencil, I scratched the measurements for the underutilized breakfast nook on the third floor into my notepad. I put the measuring tape down and tucked the pencil behind my ear. Cracking my back and rolling my neck, I stretched. I'd been measuring and taking notes all morning. Even though Tyler thought I was supposed to be there at 10, I had started as soon as he left. With a house that size, there was no way I would get it done before he got home. The sound of the front door opening and closing reached me up the stairs. Seconds later, Tyler's voice rang out through the house. "Elizabeth? Are you in here?" I climbed down from the stepladder and folded it up quietly, tucking it behind the open door. I stepped up to the railing and called down the stairs, looking over the banister. "Yes, I'm here. Is everything okay?" I still had the measuring tape in my hand. I tucked the small silver and yellow body into my front pant pocket and hoped he didn't notice the bulge. Did I miss the consult? He came to stand beneath me, looking up, hope evident in his face. Pointing toward the front door, I shook my head. She just left. "Did you need something?" She was pretty thorough. "Did you just say she was pretty? I don't know why I would care. She's just working on the house." Ahem. He had focused a little too closely on something I hadn't even said. He ran his hand over his hair and shoved his free hand on his waist. I just had a question. Did she say anything? What would she say that he was interested in? He sounds like a nice guy. Have him call me? I had a lot of things that I could have said to him, but I don't think he was really that interested in me spouting off to him. I bit back my pride and answered him like I wasn't horribly bothered by the conversation of trying to hook my husband up with a random girl, who actually turned out to be me. She said she would call you this afternoon with the information you need. I went down the stairs and made my way into the laundry room. He followed, as if he had something more to ask me but wasn't sure how. We went into the laundry room together, and I spun toward him. Would he notice I had moved things around and painted some of the trim a few days ago when I'd about gone crazy with the pink patterns and pink wallpaper? He glanced around, taking in the subtle and not so subtle changes. Wow, it looks different in here. I opened my mouth to thank him and to point out what I'd done in detail, but he cut me off before I could say anything. I haven't been in here in years. My mom really redecorated nicely. She'd said she made some changes, but wow, this is amazing. Defeat sucked the energy out of my sails. Would he ever see me? Chapter 14. Elizabeth. I was feeling churlish and decided to punish Tyler. Instead of calling him right away after finishing the inspection as the house doctor, I waited an extra 2 hours. I started to feel bad, which I didn't like, so I waited another 30 minutes. Yes, it was very petty, but my heart was on the line. The longer I stayed with him and was around him, the more I realized I didn't need the romance or the Romeo or even the traditional relationship. I had come there expecting to jump into a relationship, a marriage, and I had been relegated to less than a friend, even less than a roommate. I'm not sure there was a name for what I was. At least when I spoke to him on the phone as the house doctor, I was someone he was interested in, even if he didn't know who I was. When I finally did pick up the phone to call him, I made sure it was from the business line. He picked up on the first half of the first ring. His prompt reaction irritated me even more, which I hadn't thought was possible. I considered hanging up, but I knew he would just call me right back, and I'd have to lie and say we'd been disconnected. I hadn't told him what my name was, which made answering the phone extremely difficult. But I wasn't going to outright lie to them. Omissions were one thing, outright lying was another. He hadn't asked me my name yet, anyway, so maybe he liked the anonymity of not knowing. Affecting my customer service voice, I spoke brightly. Hi, Mr. Manning. I'm calling from the house doctor. I just wanted to let you know I have the house inspection report finished, the estimate, and what our suggestions are. I'll email this to you if you can get me your address. Then we can go from there. He didn't mess around, but went straight for the flirtation. I'm so glad to hear your voice. I was getting worried there that maybe I wouldn't hear from you. I went to my house and you had already gone. That was a lot faster than most groups that have come in to consult. Was he stalking me? No, I recognized the need to connect. Tyler was connecting with the wrong woman. I cleared my throat. Yeah, I'm pretty fast. It's writing up the inspection that takes a while. Before I submit the report, can I ask why you're selling? You mentioned your goal during our last phone conversation. I settled into the couch at his house and stared out the big front window. The sun shone through the glass, warming my toes. I wanted to be myself with him, but it wasn't safe. He wasn't proving to be the one I could trust. My mom doesn't want the place. We grew up there, and after we moved out, she got remarried and left everything for me and my brother to take care of. There's no reason for either of us to want it. I would rather be on the other side of the bay. My brother is looking to move out of the state with his fiancée. His reserved answer came at a sedate pace, like he recited from a script. Well, it's a beautiful house. I could see it being on a historical landmark registry. It has all the classic lines of an original home. In fact, the plaster hasn't even been redone since it was initially put in. I bet the home dates back to the early 1940s. I didn't have to hide myself or my appreciation for the home right then. We sat silent for a pause that was pregnant with, what should I say? And what if I said that? I took it upon myself to break the ice with one of the unspoken topics we hadn't addressed. I don't know why I had to stir things up, but apparently it's what I did. Your complicated was very nice. The extra emphasis would be hard to miss, and I regretted it as soon as the words rolled through my lips. A wall grew up between us on the phone line, like I'd magically conjured it with my words. His words became tighter and more controlled. Yes, she is. Something. I'm still getting to know her. But he didn't sound interested or disinterested. His diffidence came off sounding like apathy. What sucked was I knew it was toward me, wife me, not phone me. He spoke again, his voice lower, huskier. Are you married? I knew how to answer that, because I had clicked, I do. And I wanted to be married. I wanted to be where I was. True, I also wanted my husband to be in the same place too, but I couldn't control everything, just myself. Yes, I am. I definitely understand what you mean by complicated, but most relationships are. My mom and dad didn't have a great relationship, but they tried. I think that is the most important thing. I spoke the truth for once, with him, and it felt good. I couldn't wait to do it again with the important things. Well, if you'll text me your email address to this number, I'll send you the information. Let me know if you're interested in hiring us for the job. I didn't want to pursue the flirtation any longer. Phone Me wanted to make sure Rafimi was happy. Leading my husband along didn't make all of me happy, so I wouldn't be involved in ruining things for myself. I am interested. Are you the secretary or the manager? He added that like he wasn't riddled with curiosity. He'd considered what I told him about what I'd heard. How much had it bothered him? I narrowed my gaze and prepared for the inevitable sexism to rear its ugly head. I'm the handywoman. I thought you understood that. I'm the one that goes out and does the consults. I'm also the one that oversees the job. I do most of the work, and I guarantee it. Usually I hire out for the menial things, but I guarantee even those parts. Really? His voice was disbelieving, and part of me wanted to slap him. I bristled. It wasn't the first time I'd heard it, but knowing it came from Tyler just rubbed me the wrong way. I think I had higher expectations for my husband than others. Why? I wasn't sure. Yes, I'm very good at what I do. I have more experience in my finger than most men in the state have. I worked with my grandpa when I was extremely little and grew up working with my dad and brothers. I know the job. If you don't want to work with me, though, because of my sex, that's totally fine. I understand. Trust me, it won't be the first time. Tyler's soft laugh soothed me while it lacked derision or any mocking. Whoa, it's okay. I love the fact that you know the job. I'm glad you're confident. That makes it easier for me. I believe you can do it. When do we start? I don't even need to see the inspection report. Let's just get this done. His confidence in me broke some of my exterior shields. Really? I might have let it out on a softer breath because I was so taken by surprise. That was the second time I'd jumped to conclusions about his thoughts and beliefs. Would he continue to shock me? Really. The last few consults scared me when they used words I don't think they understood. One of the men wasn't sure how much to charge me or even where to start. I believe you can do it because you say so. He wasn't coming on to me. He was steady and honest. Dang, if that didn't appeal to me. As if I was challenging his wife, I grinned and let it show in my tone. Let your complicated know I'm coming. I'll be there tomorrow. I didn't want to talk to him anymore as phone me or wife me. I'd let myself down because I was too easily swayed by the softer side of him. What I needed to do was go outside and plan my strategy for redoing his house. Hopefully, I wouldn't spend time running over our conversation and analyzing every word. Who was I kidding? That's all I would probably do. Chapter 15. Elizabeth. I was still irritated when Tyler walked in the door last night, more with me than him. As a kind of peace offering, I had tried cooking in the kitchen. Stupid Pinterest convinced a person they could do anything, even make spaghetti and meatballs with French bread and salad. The only thing I made successfully was a salad. I think. I'd used the kind that came out of a bag, and you were supposed to mix everything together in a bowl. All of the ingredients were in a plastic bag in the bigger bag with the lettuce. I hoped I didn't mess it up, because the croutons looked kind of soggy. Tyler waved a hand in front of his face and searched for me through the hazy smoke. Whoa, what's going on in here? He rushed to the oven and opened the door, letting another billow of smoke out. Grabbing a hot pad, he pulled the pan with definite chunks of charcoaled bread from the oven. He reached up and turned off the power. Broil is not the same as bake. Wow, it looks like you attempted a big undertaking in here. It was like I could see the mess through his eyes. Marinara splattered around the saucepan and fire engine red all over the stove and the cream backsplash tile on the wall. I cringed. He didn't need to know the sauce stuck to the bottom of the pan, because I had forgotten to stir it. I'd been too busy trying to figure out why the noodles were clumped together. I blinked back tears of frustration and embarrassment. Dinner's ruined. I tried to make something nice, and stupid Pinterest. I looked down and shook my head, wiping under my eyes. I couldn't tell him I felt bad he and I had argued in a sense, because he didn't think he and I had argued. He probably didn't even think he and the phone me argued. I felt bad I was upset with him. It wasn't his fault he'd grown up in a male chauvinistic world. True, most women couldn't work a wrench, but that didn't mean none of us could. Heat flooded my face and I avoided his gaze. He approached me, placing his hands on my upper biceps. He pulled me close, his touch disconcerting me. My heart did a weird pitter-pat, and I think my toes tingled. Tyler patted my back while still holding me in a hug. It's okay. You'd be surprised what I'm not good at. I hiccuped on a laugh. But I'm the wife. I'm supposed to be good at this. I should at least be able to make spaghetti. Tyler pulled back. He didn't release me, but he looked down into my face. First of all, we're not really married. The way he held me said he didn't really believe his words, but the tones stung the same. You keep saying that. I wouldn't pout. I wouldn't pout. He cut me off and continued. Second, who says cooking is only for the woman? That's offensive, and I kind of feel like you slapped me in the face. But the twist to his lips and the tilt of his head told me he was teasing. Joking didn't take the sting out of his words. Why did he have to continually repeat we weren't really married? I already knew how he felt about us. Before I could reply, I had a perfect retort on the tip of my tongue. A loud whacking and thumping came from the laundry room. I briefly closed my eyes. I knew what that was. Tyler took off running, and I followed close behind to the laundry room. The washing machine had moved out an inch or two and flashed a bright red error message on the digital display. I was beginning to hate front-loading washers. I dealt with more than my share in Arkansas, and it was like people didn't know how to maintain them. The stupid error was the same one every time. F21, F21, or F22. They meant the same thing and flashed over and over. I'm sorry. I needed to wash some curtains I found. I hope I didn't break it. Inwardly, though, I rolled my eyes. I knew it wasn't broken, but I didn't know how to let on about that around him. Not that he really noticed what I did. Anyway. Tyler reached over and unplugged the machine. The washer gurgled as it drained the water from the drum. He tapped the top and shrugged. I never use it when I come here. I usually just send my clothes out. This thing hasn't worked properly since my mom got it, which is quite a while ago. Every time she gets one, she ends up getting that error code. I gave up on it. I was just going to let it stay with the house. Being wasteful wasn't in my makeup. I couldn't believe he was willing to just let the machine sit there and pay to have his clothes. None of that appealed to me. I lived in a house that had a laundry room and the capability of being a functioning one at that. I was going to use it, for crying out loud, or die trying. Okay, that last was a bit dramatic, but clean underwear warranted a Braveheart-style speech. I put my hands on my hips and glared at the white machine. Did I chance it? Did I take the opportunity to fix something I knew I could fix, even though it might tip off Tyler to my real persona? The real me? If I did it, Tyler may or may not even notice. If I didn't do it, he definitely wouldn't notice, and I wouldn't have any clean clothes. Opting in favor of the clean clothes, I tried to remember the last time I had repaired one. If I remembered correctly, the error had to do with the motherboard and resetting the error. All the error was involved. The centrifugal force of the drum had knocked the motherboard loose. I could fix that easy. I just had to tear down the external shell a bit. Tyler stared at the machine with me and then pointed toward the kitchen. I'm going to go see if I can do something with dinner. Will that offend you, if I do? He looked at me with his eyebrows knitted. I held up my hands at chest level, palms out, and shook my head. Number? Please. Fix it. I don't want to starve tonight. I laughed, returning my gaze to the machine. I bet I could have it repaired and back in working order in less than 30 minutes. Anxious to get started, I opened the front door when the lock unhooked and pulled on the bladder under the door crease. Seriously, dinner is not your fault. Can I get you anything? He stepped into the hallway and put his hand on the door jamb as he waited for me to reply. I knew exactly how I was going to get to the panel, but I needed a screwdriver. Yeah, could you bring me a screwdriver, please? That would be helpful? He gave me a weird look, cocking his head and slowly nodding. I agree. I'll be right back. I hunkered down on the ground and pulled the panel off the lower front. Hopefully Tyler had seen the red toolbox on the counter. I didn't need him running to the garage with all my things out there. A few minutes passed and I couldn't go any further without the screwdriver. I might have been better off just asking for the toolbox. I leaned out into the hall and jerked back. Tyler's feet stood right in front of me. and I hadn't seen or heard him approach. Thank goodness I wasn't talking to myself. I did that on occasion. Leaning back, I glanced up at Tyler and returned to my position in front of the washing machine. There were no tools in sight. Instead, he carried two reddish purple drinks. He stretched out a hand and offered me a clear glass filled with ice chunks and the liquid. Shifting my gaze from his face to the drink, I asked, "Thank you, but where's the screwdriver?" The faint aroma of vodka drifted from the glass. He offered a slight shrug. "I don't have any orange juice, but I had plenty of vodka. This won't work? You don't like cranberry." He said the latter like it was a foregone conclusion. The color of the drink made sense. "Thank you for the drink, and I'm grateful you brought me one. I actually love cranberry anything. I was actually hoping you would bring me a real screwdriver." "A Phillips?" I was embarrassed I hadn't been clearer, and I felt bad to turn down his offering. A red flush flooded Tyler's face. "Oh, right. Is that the one that's like an X?" It wasn't fair that things that would make another man seem less masculine just made him more attractive to me. He stood there in his business suit and with his sharply angled jaw and admitted to the fact that he didn't know the different types of screwdrivers. I wanted to stand and kiss him. He could cook, and I couldn't. I could fix things, and he couldn't. If I didn't know better, I'd say we were a well-made match. But I did know better, and I just wanted clean clothes I didn't have to wash in the shower. "Yeah, actually, if you don't mind bringing me the red toolbox on the counter, that would be great. I have a few things in there I could use. If not, it's just the blue-handled one in the top tray." I didn't point out that his embarrassment had matched mine with the cooking, but I wanted to. "Now, I understand how you feel about the dinner." He took a moment to toss back both drinks before returning to the kitchen. I glowered when he was out of view. I really had wanted that drink, just not right then. In seconds, he returned with my toolbox, and his face had returned to its normal color. Without another word, he left me to my work, and soon I could hear the clink of metal as pans were moved around. I finished the project in less than 30 minutes, winning my bet with myself. If I told Tyler about it, I would have to throw in that I hadn't had to marry anyone when I lost either. My crankiness was getting to me. It had been a long day, and I was ready to get some rest. Joining Tyler in the kitchen, I washed my hands at the sink and glanced into the dining room area. Tyler created an ambience akin to that of a romantic restaurant. Candles burned in the center of the table, and he had taken my horrible mess of a dinner and turned it into 2 four-star plates. He stood by the table with his hands on the back of a chair. I turned it into spaghetti casserole with lots of cheese. I have found that cheese fixes anything. He smiled and pointed at the bread. "And you hadn't used all the loaves. Not a complete waste at all. Your sauce was really great for a base. You're not as bad a cook as you like to pretend. Good job." Embarrassed by his credit, I looked at my husband and smiled. How did I tell him it was nice we were talented in different arenas? Did I also tell him it was reassuring to know I didn't have to fit into a mold when I was with him? Maybe that would make him rethink us because he didn't have to fit any expectations with me either. Would he accept me for who I was? My next thought brought a chill that didn't fit the warm California climate. Would he suspect that I was the house doctor? Thankfully, the topic didn't come. I didn't need it to. Chapter 16. Elizabeth. I looked forward to meeting Tyler for coffee in the morning. Even though it was in the kitchen and was nothing more extravagant than black coffee, the prospect got me out of bed and through the whole laborious morning ablutions of showering and brushing my hair and teeth. Instead of standing in the kitchen as I'd expected, he sat at the table, enjoying his coffee. He tapped a plate in front of my seat and smiled. I settled into the chair and smiled back. We had destroyed some kind of a wall between us the night before without baring our souls or any other dramatic event. Just a simple coming together to resolve a few issues. I welcomed the plate in front of me. "Thank you." "Well, my secret is out, so I figured I might as well cook for you. No reason to continue starving you just because I don't want you to think I'm any less masculine." He winked and picked up his fork. Our plates weren't covered in simple fare. I would have been content with simple scrambled eggs and a slice of toast. But he had delivered gourmet omelets smothered in aromatic Gouda cheese that melted and oozed down the sides. This looks amazing. I dived in with my fork, closing my eyes and murmuring my delight. He really was a terrific cook. I moaned softly and poked my fork through the air toward the plate. Your talent is breathtaking. Keep this up, and I'll get so fat, you'll need to roll me up to my room. He scoffed. Please. You want breathtaking? Look in a mirror. It's refreshing to see a brunette that doesn't try to be a blonde. Tyler cut a bite from his omelet and ate it as if he hadn't just delivered the most charming compliment I'd ever received. Before I could thank him, he continued. The sale is going to go through. I didn't really think Mac would turn down the offer, but I'm a little surprised he jumped on it so fast. He's one of my closest friends, and I didn't realize how much my own image was destroying the brand, in essence, destroying their livelihood. He chewed another bite. This is all kind of surreal, to be honest. Ryan doesn't fit the brand, but he's a back-end developer, and no one who deals with the company even know he exists. It's humbling to think I've been holding them back and no one said anything. I was thinking of starting another business, but I'm not sure I want to deal with the startup, you know? What are you going to do? He looked at me like he expected me to have all of life's answers right there in a spreadsheet and ready to discuss. I swallowed the bite and sipped my coffee while I thought of a suitable answer. Well, I had wanted this to work out. I motioned between us with a loosely held hand and smiled awkwardly. You've already said that isn't going to happen, though. I'm gathering information together and trying to figure out the best way for me to make an impact. I can't go back to Arkansas. I sold my business there, and I signed a non-compete clause. Would I want to go back, even if I hadn't? No, definitely not. Uncomfortable with the topic being on me, I redirected and speared a tomato with my fork. What are you doing today? Will you be here? I was torn on just what I wanted. He shook his head. Not until much later. I have a lot of work to do with Mac in the office over the next week or so. Tyler wiped his mouth with a napkin. The house doctor will be here today. Do you have anything you can do around here to let her in? He didn't look directly at me as he spoke. I knew where he was coming from. He didn't know that I knew. Knowing made me very uncomfortable. Yep, I can stay busy. The house was going to be a big job. I had asked Ronald to hire 4 of the most dependable high school or college kids in the area and have them at the house at 9 that morning. If they weren't late, Tyler needed to get going, or he'd end up making them omelets as well. Thanks for covering for me. He stopped for a minute and he gazed into my eyes, as if he was trying to see me, trying to recognize me for who I was. Until he saw me as both the phone me and the wife me, he would never be successful. After he left, I cleaned up the table and went out to the garage. The phone buzzed at my hip, and I knew, just deep down inside, I knew it was him without having to look at the caller ID. House doctor. Good morning. It's Tyler Manning. I just wanted to confirm our appointment for this morning. I have someone at the house there to meet you. The flirtation had dropped down a notch, and I wasn't sure if I was grateful or irritated. Why didn't he recognize my voice? That sounds great, Mr. Manning. We should be there shortly. A few feet away from the house were definitely short. Please, call me Tyler, or Ty. Whatever is easiest or you feel most comfortable with. Would you be interested in breaking away about lunchtime and meeting me down at Casa de Cinco's? I'd love to buy you lunch and discuss the project. In the brief pause, we both silently acknowledged that wasn't what he was asking me for. He had taken a professional tone and was just trying to get me to meet him. I could spot a come on a mile away, and I'd been secretly wishing for one from him for a while. But I wanted it as his wife, not the owner of a handy person company. I had no reason not to meet him. For all intents and purposes, I worked for him and was justified in stepping away from the project to meet with him. Unfortunately, I didn't want to. I desperately wanted him to see who I was. Could he be interested in me as his wife? Or did that mean I had to try to steal attention from phone me? The part of me that would take anything from him, no matter which part would get it, spoke before I could interject any sense into my answer. Sure, that sounds great. How is 11:30? Surprised, he agreed with more enthusiasm than I wanted him to. 11:30. I was torn. It was like the phone me wanted him to keep pushing her and getting to know her. And then maybe when we met, he would fall for the wife me. Yet, the wife me wanted him to stay away from the phone me because wasn't it cheating? I wasn't a fan of adultery. Wife me wanted him to acknowledge we were married, and I was good enough for him to at least try with. As long as he pursued phone me, wife me would never be able to succeed where she wanted to. Maybe I needed to close House Doctor before it took away my more basic dreams. Unwilling to follow that train of thought, I got started on the house, placing a sign up on the lawn that declared, "Renovations performed by the House Doctor." The business number was emblazoned beneath. 10 o'clock came, then 10:30. I checked every clock I could see, including my phone, about every 2 minutes. At 11, I stopped and sat down on the stairs that I was beginning to climb and stared at the floor. Doubt churned in my gut. What was I doing? I didn't want to meet him for lunch because I didn't want him to know who I was. I wasn't ready. I was becoming indifferent to him in the way he couldn't decide what he wanted. To be fair, he knew he didn't want me, or to be married. Maybe I wasn't upset with him exactly. Could I accept it might be me I was angry with? I kept my rear on that step and watched my phone clock change minute by minute to 11:30. My stomach hardened, and I expected a phone call at any moment. Would I answer? I'd already rejected him. I'd already turned him away by not calling and standing him up. I couldn't believe I'd done that to a customer, let alone my husband. My attempts at justifying my actions fell flat, but I continued anyway. I wasn't going to meet him. He wasn't being faithful, and he was trying to get me to not be faithful to my supposed husband. I'm not sure what game he played, but I wasn't very good at it, and I didn't want to play anymore. A red alert buzzed on my phone. We had missed the first step of the Click and Wed contract. Even though I dodged every chance to do the first step with Tyler since he'd turned me down, my heart still tugged with remorse when I got the notice that we'd missed it. A second buzz shook my phone. I knew for sure it was going to be Tyler, or rather hoped. It wasn't. The message was a new notification from Click and Wed. You may have already missed the first step in our Building Better Marriages plan, but that doesn't mean it's too late. Please, remember to do the steps to strengthen the foundation of your marriage. Getting to know each other is very important. Here is an alternate action step to replace step 1 that you missed. If you complete this one successfully, this will replace step 1 for the contract, and you will be able to continue forward to accomplishing your goals. Find out information on your spouse concerning their hobbies or what their family life was like growing up. Do something to encourage sharing. This will help set you set up for step 2. Do something for your spouse. These steps are important if you want to succeed. With Tyler trying to see someone else and pushing me to see other guys, I didn't want to do the steps. I logged out and uninstalled the Click and Wed app. Tyler didn't want to be with me. I needed to make plans to move on and fulfill other dreams of mine. Hardening my heart to protect myself would be priority. My first marriage had failed. Which did it technically count as a marriage? And anyway, who said I needed to be married to be happy? Who said I needed to be in love? I couldn't tell Alex what was going on. She would never understand. It was the first time in my life I didn't let my best friend know I'd failed at something. Chapter 17. Elizabeth. Trying to cook something for Tyler would have been counterproductive, unless of course I wanted to kill him. Even though I was despondent, I didn't want to hurt him. Much. When he walked through the door, I had made sure everything from the remodel was taken care of. I left the house doctor sign on the lawn. She didn't need to be present for her to advertise. He didn't comment on the different colored paint on the front of the home, or the strips of wallpaper missing from the walls inside the home. Overall, he didn't say much. It wasn't my place to bring up the missed luncheon, because he didn't know we were the same person. He had to be upset with her for standing him up. My stomach twisted from hurting him. I leaned on the door jamb of the living room and crossed my ankles with my arms over my chest. "What's wrong? Did you have a hard day?" He studied me for a minute, coming close and putting his face a few inches from mine as he studied me. After a long moment, he took off his suit jacket and slung it over the banister of the stairs. He harumphed into the living room, flopping on the couch. My normally composed and formal husband kicked his feet up on the coffee table. Can I talk to you? I just need to vent this out. I'm so confused. I'm interested in this girl. She actually is the one that works for House Doctor. I feel like I have a connection with her. You know what I mean? I'm interested, very much so. She's not too flirtatious. She doesn't come on too strong. She gets me. She doesn't take my crap. That doesn't happen very much. I asked her to lunch today, and she couldn't do it. His voice lowered. Even though she's working on my house, you'd think that would be a sign of permission for her to leave the job for a little bit. He shook his head, staring at the laces of his shiny black shoes. I'm not sure what to do. He directed his gaze at me and pierced me with his hypnotic gaze. What do you think she's thinking? What do you think I should do? I had turned, with my back against the wall, and watched as he sat down. As he spoke, my frustration mounted. For the first time since I arrived, I actually felt like crying. Hard. Crying like someone had taken everything I had and thrown it away. Not just my carry-on. He didn't see me the way I needed him to see me. He would never see me as his wife. I stepped forward, and he lifted his gaze to me like he waited for some sage advice. On that particular subject, he wanted my suggestions, wanted to connect. I couldn't stop my lips from snarling. My emotion ripped from me. What is wrong with you? I am married to you, mister. This woman is married and you're chasing after her? She's not available, but I am. You won't even consider me as an option. You clicked, I do. You accepted me in my profile. You didn't have to. I threw my hands in the air and gazed toward the ceiling. My voice dripped with sarcasm. I get it. You lost some kind of a bet. I totally understand. But I'm here, and I'm not ugly. Am I? I guess I could be. Am I the most horribly unattractive person you've ever met? My tears didn't fall, and that made me angrier, and my voice rose further. You are so selfish. I'm not asking for forever. I'm not even asking for anything longer than the 6 months. How dare you waste my time? How dare you? I couldn't cry. Please, no. I couldn't breathe. I ran from the room, straight to the garage, ignoring Ronald as he waved to me from the fence. When I reached the safety of the shop, I sank onto the stool and allowed my cries to shake my shoulders. The only way I was able to breathe was if I let myself cry. So I did. I let it out. Tyler didn't want me. He didn't want me. It became a lamentation that played over in my mind like a song stuck in repeat mode. How long had I sat there and cried? The sun began to set, and I sat there in the dim garage, wallowing in the shadows. I reached over and flipped on the light. I was drained and exhausted. I had to come up with a plan, figure something out because Tyler wasn't even going to give me an opportunity. Finally, I could accept that. I was mad at myself for waiting so long to do so, but I was ready. A knock at the door, and I half stood from the stool, swiping at my cheeks in desperation. Tyler didn't wait for an invitation. He just pushed right in. He glanced at me and then around the shop. His mouth worked like he meant to say something, but he couldn't as he took in the shop. He studied it like he'd been in there before, and the immediacy summoned some long-lost memory. After a moment, he exhaled. Wow. Look at this. You have it set up just like my dad did when he was alive. You even have that thing over there. I followed where he pointed at my chop saw. I looked back at him and arched my eyebrow. The conversation was ridiculous after I'd just blown up at him. Where was he going with the aimless chatter? What is that? He approached the table in awe, as if his grandfather would appear beside it. I cleared my throat and swallowed, moving to stand close enough to talk normally, but far enough away I wasn't too close to smell his cologne. It's a 12-inch dual double-sliding compound miter saw. I was pretty proud of my tools. I maintained them with detailed attention. Tyler chuckled. I have no idea what you just said. Rather than smile, I answered matter-of-factly. It's a chop saw. I was still irritated at him, and my irritation grew at how he ignored the situation. You know how to use everything? He circled his finger in the air to encompass everything in the garage. You know how to use that? He pointed again at the chop saw. What is it used for? I waited to see if he was going to let me answer before spouting off my questions. I know how to use all of this. It's all mine. The chop saw is used for cutting different angles and other types of lines into wood. I was more than a little excited to show off. I had to remember I was mad. Could you cut metal on it? He walked around it like he was thinking of putting something made of metal on the surface and running it through. No, I have a metal one over there in the metalworks area. Yikes, I would have to remind myself, or leave myself a note not to let him out in the garage by himself. Who would even joke about something like that? He took a few steps into the garage towards the welder, his hands in his pockets. Inspecting other tools, he glanced at me and asked, Why not? Still frustrated with him, I couldn't believe he was asking me those questions. I bit my tongue and continued answering. It's like if your mom was into sewing and she had a sewing kit, right? She probably had special scissors that were just for fabric. You couldn't cut anything else with the scissors because it would dull the scissors. Exactly like this. Same idea. Wood only, metal only. My words were clipped, but I didn't care. He was lucky to get that much out of me. He didn't say anything else, just kind of walked around and looked at different things. He came across one of my pegboards and stopped. The surface was covered in hammers in the haphazard way I organized them. I wasn't tall, so most of them were lower on the board. Fingering the wooden handle of my ball-peen hammer, he studied each piece carefully. Why would you need all of these hammers? Well, there's a framing hammer, a claw hammer, a ball-peen hammer, a mini sledgehammer, and a rubber mallet. There are also different sizes for different jobs. I don't have as many as I want. His curiosity corroded at my anger. What else would he ask about? He hadn't been interested in anything about me until I'd decided I didn't want to be with him anymore. What? Then he suddenly wanted more to do with me? Tyler's laugh was sudden, and I jolted backwards. I've used a rubber mallet before. I was 16 and Jay was 14. He's my little brother. Mom needed the battery changed in her Volkswagen Bug. That was a really good learning opportunity. He chuckled before going on. We couldn't get the connectors of the wires to slide onto the protruding pieces of the battery. You know which ones I mean? We put negative on positive and positive on negative. Tyler's laugh broke through, and he had to stop in his telling to calm down. I found myself smiling in spite of my irritation. The negative connector on the wire was made smaller than the positive receptor sticking out of the battery. They made it like that, so it's idiot-proof, right? So you couldn't fit them even if you didn't know what you were doing, right? Well, I just knew that was how you were supposed to do it. He paused for dramatic effect and took my rubber mallet from the board. Horrified at where he was going with the story and unwilling to look away, I covered my mouth. I took that mallet and hammered that connector onto the receptor. I made it fit. Nothing was going to stop me from changing that battery. I got both wires connected and... He shook his head. His uncontrollable laughter softened the tension in the room. Swallowing my mortification, I gave in and spoke. How big was the fire? He laughed out loud. You've seen it happen then? Those flames followed the wire all the way back and destroyed the generator and all of the interior material. The Volkswagen was old enough it didn't have an alternator. It was just a generator. I'll never forget my mom screaming when she found out. He put the mallet back and patted it. I definitely know what a rubber mallet is. My smile was stuck on my face, and as we sat there in silence for a minute, my smile faded and I returned to all seriousness. How blotchy was my face from crying over him. Well, why did you come out here? What do you need? He turned and faced me, his eyes focused. You're direct on some things. I'm not used to that. Do you think that justifies what you're doing? The fact that you're not used to someone like me? I didn't need him, and I was starting to figure out that he didn't want me. There was nothing in our relationship that was grounds to stay married. I didn't think about any of it like you put it. I wasn't considering her feelings, or your feelings. When I should have been looking at this like an actual marriage, I was looking at it as an end to a bet. I lost a bet, and this is what it is. I didn't think of it as actually affecting you or me or her. I wasn't devastated by her rejection, more confused than anything. I don't usually have problems with women, and in the span of a few weeks, I've gone from having anyone I want to not being able to get the two in my life. You have no idea how disconcerting that is. He shook his head and stepped closer to me, as if edging closer in a sneaky way. His intentions weren't clear, and I was done. I think since you don't want to be married, we should just quit. If you're okay with it, I need to stay here until the end of the 6 months. I'll pay rent or whatever, but I'm not interested in waiting around for you to pay attention to me or for you to see me. Come up with an amount and I'll pay you. My exhaustive crying jag and emotional expectations weighed on me, and I just wanted to fall into bed. But I do see you. He nodded his head as if that would make his words stick. I shook my head, looking away and then back to him. No, you don't. And when you finally do, you're going to feel really stupid about what you missed. I already do. Tyler considered me, crossing his arms over his chest. Something to think about, Mrs. Manning. Maybe you aren't seeing me. The determination in his gaze had me questioning if maybe I wasn't. The way he called me Mrs. Manning had me wishing for more. Chapter 18. T. Weiler. Playing Elizabeth's game had caught up to Tyler in the worst way. He continued sitting on the couch long after she'd left. How had his innocent questions turned upside down so fast? Couldn't she see he was talking about her? Tyler wanted her there for lunch. He had asked her so he could tell her he knew who she was. Waiting at Casa de Cinco's with a bouquet of wildflowers and a wedding ring was not his idea of fun when she never showed up. Every minute leading up to 11:30 seemed to make his heart beat faster and faster. He couldn't wait. He was so nervous about what he would say, what he would do. Each second after 11:30 that she hadn't shown, he'd wilted further and further. What had he done wrong to scare her off? He called Ryan and just got the voicemail. What was he supposed to do? He needed help. What if he went outside and just spoke with her? She had to know he knew, but what if she didn't want to hear him? Tyler's emotions had become jagged and raw. He couldn't do anything right, and he just wanted to try with her. What if he'd messed up so much at first by telling her he wasn't interested, that she'd never let him try? What would he do with the ring if she didn't want him anymore? Chapter 19. Elizabeth. It was easy for me to keep the facade of wife me and phone me separated. Tyler was still going into work every day to fulfill the contract with his CFO and friend. If he ever drove by or drove up, I had the high school guys painting the house and working outside while I worked inside, managing the more intricate tasks. He and I pretended nothing had happened. All of that, and the business phone didn't receive any more calls from him. I'd had plenty of calls from other people, though, and my calendar slowly filled up. If I got 7 more calls like I had all week, I would have 6 months, or rather my last 5 months there, filled up. All of those jobs would give me just enough work to be able to find my own place and continue building my clientele. But Tyler hadn't called. He didn't call to talk to the house doctor, which meant he wasn't pursuing anything further with her. It pleased me. Wife me anyway. It disappointed the crud out of phone me. I couldn't even keep his attention anonymously. My personal number buzzed, and I answered without glancing at the screen. I was waiting for a call from Alex. Tyler was on the other end. Had I given my secret away? Or was he actually calling me and not her? I'm going to my brother's, or rather my old place, tonight for poker. It's boys' night. Would you be okay with that? Do you need anything? He hesitated as he asked, like maybe I would throw a fit and demand he come home. Good luck with that, buddy. I needed all the time with him, absent I could get. I'll be fine. I'm usually by myself all day. Have fun. Thank goodness he wouldn't be there. I would have to take advantage of the extra time and get ahead in the projects on the house. I was used to working 10 to 15-hour days on projects. Having to hide the projects from him shortened my days by about 6 hours. 6 hours. I didn't like that, and I hadn't planned for it. The extra hours that night would be appreciated more than he knew. I would work as long as I could. I rolled my shoulders and smiled. Call me if you need a ride home or anything. I can come and get you. It doesn't matter what time. I'm a light sleeper. He wouldn't call me. He didn't need me for anything. I kind of wished he would. Thank you. I usually sleep over, or Jay did when we do this at my condo. I'll probably carry on the tradition, but I appreciate the offer. He really sounded like he did. Sounds like there's a story there. I turned to the carpet and continued ripping it up from the second floor. The home had beautiful hardwood floors which matched the downstairs. I wanted to tell him. I wanted to share my excitement, but I couldn't. He chuckled, the sound low and fun. If you only knew. There are a lot of stories there. I'll see you tomorrow? His voice excited me, and I couldn't wait for the next day, no matter how unlikely it was. Too bad he didn't really understand what it was I offered him. The annoying ring of my phone got my attention an hour after I fell into bed. I blinked at the screen as I swiped the face to answer. Tyler. What time was it? My phone's clock said 2 a.m. Hello? I was groggy, and no matter how much I blinked, I couldn't shake the blurry fuzz in my gaze. Elizabeth, I need a ride. Can you come get me? His words slurred, and for a second I wondered irritably why he couldn't have just called a cab. Pushing my errant thought away, I shoved myself up on my pillow. My warm, comfortable pillow. I had told him to call me. Yep, I need directions. I yawned, cutting off the rest of my comments. Probably best. We hung up after I got an address from him. I'd put it into Google Maps on my phone. I jumped in the Dodge and drove there, still trying to wake up all the way. Jay didn't live more than 30 minutes away, around the bay. Even that late-at-night traffic was still congested. I pulled up to a state-of-the-art condo building. Everything had been manicured beyond any rational level of comfort. I could see why Tyler fit in there. He didn't have to do anything to maintain the place. He didn't have to become intimate with the building. Speak of my husband. He stumbled out the door, waving at a man who looked very similar to him in the doorway. Stopping outside the Dodge, he absorbed the sighs as he opened the door. Did you steal it? His whisper was slurred and silly, but he meant it. I forgot he didn't know the truck was mine. No, I didn't steal it. Oh, whatever. You won't remember this anyway. Get in. He wouldn't remember a thing, not with how drunk he was. Once he settled in and snapped the seatbelt, I couldn't help asking, as I drove away. Why did you call me? I thought you were staying the night. Because you're my friend and my wife, I think. Are you my wife? If you're my friend and my wife, that would make you my W-ind or my frife or fife or stir-fry. He laughed and trailed his finger on the glass by his head. I couldn't help laughing at his silly terms. Not really, remember? We're going to cancel it. It didn't hurt so bad to remind him of what he kept telling me. In a moment of sobriety, Tyler looked over at me. What if we didn't? What if we just kept trying? I rolled my eyes, laughter mingling with my words. We haven't been trying. You have to actually be doing something to keep doing it. I merged with traffic on the freeway, squinting at the bright red brake lights blaring in front of us. He shifted on the bench seat and turned more fully toward me. Leaning half across the cab, his eyes reflected all the lights around us. But what if we did? What if we actually tried? What if we tried being married? I didn't take him seriously. Who would? The man was drunk off his backside. I was neutral the best I could be. What was this? Some trap in a swamp where one way you were eaten by alligators and the other way you'd get tangled in a trap? I wasn't sure what he wanted me to say, but I didn't feel like having my emotions toyed with. Tyler kept talking. Jay and my friends made me realize I'm passing up on something which could be a great thing. I don't want to miss out on anything. I've done the single thing, the bachelor thing. Did you know I was voted best bachelor in San Francisco? And you married him. You married best bachelor, and all I've been is a good bachelor. I want to be best husband. I do best. I do best the best. I'm number one. I didn't like being a bachelor, and I think this could be a good challenge. I'm in. Want to give us a chance? We have about 5 months left. Let's do this. Let's try. You're drunk! But his argument was intriguing, and that made me madder. He still didn't know anything about me if he thought a drunken proposition was the way to my heart. He already had the key. He just didn't know how to use it. I wasn't in the mood to help him. Chapter 20. Elizabeth. Pulling myself out of bed about 8 o'clock, I just wanted to sleep. I wouldn't wake Tyler up with any loud banging or anything, but I had to make sure the boys got started painting in the back. The color I had chosen was a warm brown. The way I would paint the trim and the fascia would make it the most sellable place in Oakland. I wasn't sure if Tyler would go into work that day, especially after his adventures the night before. Either way, there were still some things I could get done that even if he walked in on me, he wouldn't know what I was doing. Thinking he would walk in on me was being optimistic. He stumbled in, blinking against the bright mid-morning light. At least he had tried taking a shower to make himself presentable. His fresh cologne struck me and was exactly what I needed to start my day right. The smell I was associating with Tyler would be hard to leave when I moved out. "Where is the house doctor?" He peered out the windows, searching for the woman I had decided was my arch nemesis. Who was me? I sighed. The lying was getting old, and his attraction to her hadn't waned like I'd assumed. Apparently, it was still fresh in his mind while alcohol buzzed through his veins. The same alcohol that had him trying to convince me to give us a shot. "Are you going into work today, or are you still pining for the good doctor?" He winced at my loud voice, bringing a hand to his temple. "Yeah, I am going to work. No, I am not pining for the house doctor. I'm just wondering why nothing is getting done. I'm paying money for her to fix my house." Slightly mollified, I straightened and met his gaze. "I asked her to wait until you were gone so you get some sleep. You were a pretty big mess last night." His eyes widened in shock. "That's really considerate of you, especially considering I haven't been very kind to you." "Thank you. And thank you for picking me up last night." He pointed over her shoulder. "I like your truck." Tyler had remembered. I smiled shamefacedly. "Yeah, it's mine. After you bashed trucks, what was I supposed to say? Hey, I know you think owning a truck in California stupid. That's mine?" He laughed and nodded, careful not to make any sudden movements. "Fair enough. But really, thank you for getting me." I shook my head and looked down at the newspaper I studied. "No problem. That's what friends are for." He stepped close, invading my space along my left side until I straightened and turned to face him. His eyes were bloodshot, but his gaze has softened. "We agreed to try this marriage thing. We can't call each other friends like that anymore." Alarm trickled up my spine. "No, you did." I have pretty much lost interest. It wasn't my first outright lie to him. And I was definitely lying, but he didn't need to know that. I didn't need to be an easy conquest. He had that opportunity when I first got there. Tyler reached up, tucking his forefinger under my chin and tracing my lower lip with his thumb. "I'm going to see if I can persuade you to be interested." He turned and left me in the gooey puddle of interest that he'd turned me into. Tyler disinterested had me crushing on him. With him actually coming after me? It was going to put me in a whole lot of trouble. Chapter 21. Elizabeth. I didn't know what to expect when Tyler threw down the challenge. I certainly didn't expect him to text me before leaving work to let me know he was going to be home soon. Nor did I expect that when he did show up in the evening, he would be attentive and interested enough to ask me questions. Protecting my heart became my new goal. It wasn't enough for me to be independent when I left there. I knew I would leave the house. If for no other reason than because Tyler wanted to sell it. That was taking out the possibility and likelihood that we would be divorced or annulled. Presuming that we stayed together, Tyler was selling the house and I wouldn't be there after it sold, which it would do after the remodel I was giving it. No, my independence didn't matter as far as I was concerned. I had to leave the house on Staten Avenue with my heart intact. A crush was one thing. I had recovered from so many crushes you'd think they were some kind of virus. Love? Love was something entirely different that I didn't think I could heal from. The best thing for me to do would be to protect my heart from the outset. It had been different when I thought he and I were in it for the same reasons, the same goals. After everything was said and done, I really just wanted a do-over. Okay, not really, but it felt good to think it. I stared at the calendar in my garage. I had 3 weeks left of work to do on the house. There were things I couldn't rush, because they were time sensitive, like drying paint, or setting glue, or waiting for shipments to arrive. The jobs I had left were things that didn't matter how long I worked. They still needed time I couldn't rush. They needed to be done before he got home from work. The stress was insurmountable. Tyler had expedited the transfer of the business because his friend wanted to get going on it. The change in time frame left him with 2 weeks to work there. 2 weeks where I could hide my job a little bit longer. 2 weeks until I had to tell him I was lying. The deadline to the revelation of the truth loomed. Every day that passed made me want to throw up. I could not justify working on his house without telling him I was the house doctor. Would he want anything to do with me when he knew how badly I'd deceived him? Reality had me feeling nauseous on a consistent basis. I deleted the app that had reminded me over and over how badly we failed. I didn't need the reminder. I saw it every morning when he left, and every evening when he arrived. 2 days after we agreed to keep trying, not only did Tyler text me he was going to be home, giving me ample time to pick up, take care of my messes, and change. He also showed up with a bouquet of the most beautiful peach roses and a box of chocolates. Not just any chocolates. They were dark lemon creams. The man actually listened to me when I spoke. I'd made a random comment the other night about what favorite candies I had. I admitted to being a sucker for dark chocolate, or anything lemony. I couldn't believe he combined the two. How was I supposed to protect myself from that? He handed the flowers to me, wrapped in tissue and mixed with white baby's breath. These are gorgeous. Thank you, I breathed as I inhaled their soft, sweet scent. Wow, would you look at this floor? He walked in, his arms spread, and studied the refinished hardwood floor. I had just finished polishing it, and his praise warmed me. I wished I could thank him for that, but my secrets held my tongue. Do you get to see her much? Has she said anything about added cost or how much longer she thinks it's going to take? He glanced at me for answers I honestly had no right knowing, if he only knew. I cleared my throat. She said something about 3 weeks? 3 weeks. In less than 2, the truth would come out. I was more nervous about that than anything else. How would he react? What would he think? He would call me the worst kind of liars and kick me out. At least he should. A smart man would. 3 weeks? I don't know if I want to sell this now. The more renovated it becomes, the more I remember times with my dad here. I need to have Jay over so he can look it over. He stepped close to me and looked down into my eyes. Thank you for that. I forgot how important it was to remember him. I got so busy trying to forget my mom and the difficulties we had growing up, I forgot to remember the good things when my dad was alive. His touch unnerved me, and not in a bad way. I offered a soft smile when he reached down and claimed my hand with his. He lifted my fingers and kissed them casually, like it was the most natural thing to do. So, when it gets all done, what do you think about canceling the listing? Would you be interested in staying here? His offer startled me. Let's wait and see. You might not like the way things are in 3 weeks. In 3 weeks, he would know the truth. In 3 weeks, he would have every right to despise me. That possibility stung, and I didn't want to face it. My cowardice was showing. I wished I could go back in time and start over, be honest from the beginning. Because there was no way he would love me or even care for me after he found out I was a liar. Chapter 22. T-Weiler. The game was getting to Tyler. He didn't know how much longer he could keep playing, hoping she would tell him the truth, hoping she would accept what he had learned the night at Jay's to accept. He didn't even look at his condo like it was his anymore. Because it wasn't. Tyler belonged in the house on Staten Avenue. He belonged there with Elizabeth. He'd made a stupid mistake of acting like he didn't know she owned the company and that he was flirting with her on the phone. She believed he was being unfaithful. If only he'd known. At the same time, how could she not see how he felt about her? Tyler needed to up his game, and flowers and candy were not going to do it. He was close to getting to her. He couldn't stop thinking about her and pretending that he was going to work when he had already handed the company over to Ryan a week ago. It was killing him. For a few hours, he would drive the Mustang around the bay before coming back and parking at the end of the street. He'd walk up and try to catch glimpses of her as she worked on the house. She was methodical and efficient. She knew her stuff. She taught 3 high school boys how to paint the house right in front of him. She never knew Tyler was there. Ronald spied Tyler a couple times, and he was sure Ronald would tell Elizabeth he had seen her husband. But she never let on that she knew. He knew what she wouldn't tell him. Tyler had to take into consideration what Jay had told him and apply it. He didn't want to be unhappy. He wanted to succeed at something important. At Jay's house, Tyler drank so much he couldn't think. Once the other guests left, Tyler's younger brother turned to him and said, "You can't stay tonight." He picked up some dishes and put them in the sink. Tyler had glared and spluttered. "Why not? This is my place, too." "No, your place is over on Staten Avenue with Elizabeth. Call her and get this crap figured out. You're pining for your wife and you won't give her any of the truth. Fix it with her. Try with her. You owe me that much." He wiped down the counter. It was small consolation that he was taking care of the place. "I owe you? I'm fulfilling my bet. I'm doing what I'm supposed to do." He'd been upset, and the alcohol had compounded the emotions. "Yeah. You owe me. The bet was that you would give me a marriage for 6 months. The crap you're doing, it doesn't count. You're playing a cat and mouse game that nobody deserves. Haven't you learned anything? Are you even attracted to her? Don't hurt her. Don't hurt yourself. You talk about her all the time. You think about her all the time. Enough is enough. Go all in or get out. It's time to call the game." He handed the phone to Tyler after dialing for him. That's what Tyler had to do. Elizabeth wasn't like other women. Jewelry wouldn't work. Bouquets of roses and chocolates weren't going to work. He had to get through to her. He had to connect. How did you succeed at something you'd never really done? He was starting to think his fear of failure wasn't actually in the act of feeling. It was more about what he was losing. Tyler didn't want to lose her. The more he got to know her, the more he got to see her, the harder it was going to be for him to let her walk away. Chapter 23. Elizabeth. My phone keeps buzzing. I think that Click and Wed app is trying to kill me. Is yours still setting off notifications for you to do the steps with all kinds of end-of-the-world warnings? Tyler walked in the front door with his phone in his hand. He searched for me and found me on the steps. Following the directions he had texted me, I had put on a pair of cargo pants and a t-shirt with tennis shoes. I had no idea what was going on, but that's what he told me to do before he got home, so I did it. He studied me up and down and smiled. "Good. I'm glad you did what I said. Give me a few minutes to change and we'll get started. Check your app and see if yours is having a seizure too." He shook his head as he climbed the stairs. I called up after him. "No, I deleted the app. What's the point, right?" Nothing that we had done had been what Click and Wed had wanted us to do. Even now, I didn't trust that we were both trying. So he brought me some flowers and candy and made me dinner a few nights. It would take more than that to convince me he wanted me to stay. I stood and ambled over to lean against the doorframe. The California sunsets were getting to me. I wouldn't be able to leave, even if I was told to. He trotted down the steps and came up behind me. "Are you ready? Because your first clue is Roman columns." I turned, startled, quirking my head his direction like I couldn't hear him. "Clue? What is this?" "I set up a scavenger hunt for you. Click and Wed had the right idea of us getting to know each other, but we haven't been on its time frame. I thought maybe something like this would help us catch up." He wore khaki cargo shorts and a camouflage t-shirt. I hadn't seen him in such casual clothing since I'd moved in. The sight of muscular shoulders and bulging biceps beneath the sleeve line had me rethinking my whole protecting my heart thing. "Roman columns?" I thought for a second and snapped my fingers. "The gazebo." "I'll drive." He grabbed my fingers and pulled me along behind him. I don't know if I was more excited that he touched me or that I was going to get to do a scavenger hunt. I had never done one before, and I'd always wanted to. We pulled up to the park and almost skipped our way to the gazebo. Tied to a post on the railing, a small pink gift bag swung in the soft breeze. I glanced at Tyler and giddily removed it, wrinkling my nose. Can I open it now? He nodded, watching me. Carefully, I untied the knot of pink ribbon and reached inside the 3-inch wide bag. I pulled out an apple fritter that was still slightly warm. The smell assaulted my senses, and I looked at him for explanation. He reached out and tore the donut in half, giving me half and taking a bite of his half. This is a getting to know you scavenger hunt. These are my favorite donuts. They were my dad's favorite when I was growing up. We used to get these before we would go fishing and before doing anything else. There's a little donut shop down the street, and this is where we would get them from. What's your favorite donut? He licked his fingers as he polished off his half. I took a bite and closed my eyes. Apple fritters are my favorite, too. My grandpa used to have a box of them in the shop when I would help. How funny that these are both our favorites. Look at us. We have something in common. Careful, Lizzie. You might not be able to protect yourself for too much longer. He winked at me and nodded toward the bag. There's another clue, but it's on the bottom of the bag. I finished the donut and peeked at the bottom of the bag. The logo to a hardware store topped the receipt taped to the bottom. It was folded, so nothing but the logo was readable. There's a receipt here. Are we supposed to go to this place? Let's check it out. Tyler grabbed my hand and away we went again. My excitement mounted, and I couldn't wait to go with him to a hardware store. In no time, we reached the shop, and it was like a candy store for kids. I breathed in the smell of sawdust and grease mingled with air freshener. It was a smell that was universal around the world. All tools smelled the same, along with oil. Okay, now what? I looked at him in the car, my excitement keeping me from protecting myself too much. He was breaking through my shields, and I didn't resent it. I enjoyed his attempts. Go inside, find out. He hopped out of the car and came around to my side, opening the door for me. I was nervous. I was never nervous going into hardware stores. We walked in together, and I offered the gift bag to the first person I saw with a name tag. Do you know what I'm supposed to do with this? The older gentleman in a red vest turned the bag around and untaped the receipt. His eyes widened and he smiled. We just got this in. You'll find it in the back at will call. Just follow the line there all the way to the back. Tyler took the receipt so I couldn't peek. He walked along beside me as we wended our way through the aisles. My stomach is nervous. I'm a little too excited for this. What did you do? You don't strike me as the type of girl who likes jewelry. So instead of getting you a necklace or bracelet, I chose this. I hope you don't mind, but I had to go through your garage a bit and make a list. I can't carry this gift in my pocket. The last part was sardonic and served with a side smile. Has anyone ever told you how handsome you are? Heat flushed my cheeks at my blurted compliment. But I said it, and I meant it. I wasn't going to take it back. Not that meant anything. He wrapped his arm around my shoulders and pulled me close as we walked. Back at will call, Tyler produced the receipt and handed it across to the gentleman standing there at the counter. The man's eyebrows lifted, and he glanced from Tyler to me. Nice one. Says here it's a gift. From whom to whom? Tyler lifted his hand. From me to her. I wouldn't know the first thing to do with that. He was comfortable laughing at himself, and it made him so adorable. It's okay, man. You're not the first one. We get a lot of ladies in here who know more about tools than their guys. Nothing wrong with that. He turned and pushed a button and spoke into the intercom. He then turned back to us and smiled. I'll have the product up here in a second for you to look at it. Then we'll deliver it this weekend, if that's okay. It's the earliest availability in the schedule. Tyler nodded, squeezing my hand in his fingers. That will work perfectly. As surrounded as I was by the tools of my trade, I couldn't help but wish he'd given me some kind of jewelry. A ring would have been nice. I snapped myself out of that longing. In no time, another man in a vest wheeled in a dolly loaded with a jet drill press taller than me. I covered my mouth with my hands and stared. The press was one of the last things I had left to get. I wasn't a huge woodworker, so wouldn't need a planer, but the drill press would help a lot. His research astounded me. He leaned over to me and whispered, Did I do well? I spun and looked at him, my hand still over my mouth. Yes, it's amazing. You didn't have to do that. I couldn't believe what he'd done. He saw me. He truly saw me. Guilt swamped me that he was being so good to me, and I continued lying to him. Tyler inclined his head. Trust me, this was easier to get than jewelry. There's only good, better, best in these types of situations. In jewelry, there's cut, clarity, and all the other C's I don't really care about. He laughed softly. We left the store. I couldn't imagine it getting any better. If only I could squash my guilt over the lies. He wanted to spoil me, and I didn't deserve it. I stepped off the curb and fell, stumbling against the car. I twisted my ankle and called out. Tyler rushed to my side. Are you okay? Let's cut this short. We can go back so you can rest. I'm sorry. I can try to walk on it. The pain hurt, but not enough to keep me from finishing the night. I'm sure it's fine. Thank you. It's okay. We really were going to get pizza next. I tried getting complex and I realized I was hungrier than anything. That's why I think I started with the donut. He glanced at me sheepishly. Was it a stupid scavenger hunt? I shook my head, giggling. I'm so glad that's all it was. Can we just ask each other questions and get to know each other? It was so fun. But I'm a little self-conscious about stuff like this. Plus, I'm starving too. I'm very overwhelmed by the generosity of your gift. It was very romantic. I widened my eyes and nodded my head suggestively. He laughed. Let's go. The pizza isn't going to walk to our place. Our place. It sounded nicer than I'd thought. We opted for carryout, and when we got back to the house, Tyler took it inside. I pointed toward the garage and tried not to limp too badly. I'm going to run into the garage really quick. I'll be right back. Meet you inside? I had forgotten to forward my business line to my cell phone, and I needed to check messages before the day was completely over. On my way to the garage door, Ronald called out to me from his gate. I turned and in mid-stride motioned toward the door. Come with me into the garage. I've got to check the calendar and do a couple things. I'm late to having pizza with Tyler. Ronald opened the gate and joined me. He walked inside and leaned against the counter. The boys are done with the jobs you gave them. Did you want them to do anything else, or should I just let them know that you don't need anything? I checked the calendar, and with only 2 weeks left, my stomach twisted tighter. In 2 weeks, I have the job over at Mrs. Waddle's. If they're interested, I'd be happy to offer them that job. They did a great job here. Can you find out if that will work? If so, let them know I'm going to be offering a bonus when they do jobs like this. I'll have their bonuses ready for them tomorrow for this one. Per my agreement with Ronald, I would also be paying him for helping me manage the boys and with the marketing. At the door, I thanked him for his help and leaned over to give him a hug. Heat flushed his cheeks, and he smiled. My pleasure. He disappeared back inside his fence. I locked up the garage. There were too many things worth a lot of money in there to just be blasé about keeping it locked anymore. Climbing up the steps, I let myself in the back door. Tyler must have unlocked it for me. I closed the door and smiled at the night we'd had. We were going to keep going with the pizza. I was so excited. The house doctor business was coming along lovely, and I could really be proud of it. If only its origins and current operations weren't masked and shadowed with lies, I might actually be able to relish the growing success. That looked pretty intense. I thought you and Ronald weren't seeing each other. Tyler stood at the kitchen window, kind of hid him from my view by the cabinet on the wall. Oh, we're not seeing each other. He's just a friend. I had promised him I was going to support him at the market this weekend. He invited us to go. I was just giving him a hug for thanks. I couldn't tell Tyler that my husband was the one I wanted. Couldn't tell him that all of my thoughts were around him and I lost sleep thinking about him. I don't know why I was having such a hard time disclosing my feelings when normally I just blurted them out. Maybe because these words actually counted. Would you like to go with me? Maybe we could get some bread and some fresh jam and have it for breakfast? Would he turn me down? Did he suspect something? He'd never forgive me if he knew. He rounded the counter and took my hands in his as we faced each other. I would love to. Thanks for inviting me. And thank you for going with me tonight. It was fun. We were frozen in a moment of time that I never wanted to leave. As if drawn by a magnet, we leaned into each other, and Tyler softly placed his lips to my nose. Then he moved and kissed my eyelids one after the other, drawing out the lingering touch slower and slower. As I lifted my chin, with the softness of a butterfly's wings, he placed his lips on mine. We both sharply inhaled, and after a space of time we pressed closer together and kissed deeply. And hot dang, if my heart didn't pound a little bit faster and my skin get a little warmer. Maybe this crush wasn't just a crush anymore. Chapter 24. Elizabeth. The time was going so fast. I worked as hard as I could, and I still wasn't sure I'd make the deadline. I didn't want to tell him. Every night, I had nightmares that I was walking the streets of San Francisco, homeless and alone. Saturday, after the market, I planned on being honest with him. I wanted to work. I had a way planned to tell him the truth, like I had been doing it as a surprise for him the entire time, instead of being something I'd hidden from him. We walked together to the marketplace, with multiple booths set up according to what their artist or vendor offered. We passed booths with fresh vegetables, one with raw local honey, another had wood products, and another had bird houses made from gourds. Tyler reached out awkwardly and took my hand in his. I'm sorry. I'm not very good at this. I don't usually do relationships. I'm the weekend dater, and I never see the women again. I tugged him closer to me, bumping him with my shoulder and leaning my head on his arm. I think you're perfectly awesome at this. I've never been a relationship girl either. I think you're doing amazing. About 10 booths down, Ronald's berry booth stocked with jars of jams and jellies and bags filled with dried fruit. Labels reading Ronald's berries had been plastered on jars with multicolored ribbons wrapped around their necks. Ronald wore a green and red plaid apron and smiled as we approached him. It's the Mannings. So nice to see you guys here. Thanks for coming down. I warmly reached out and hugged my friend. Stepping back, I motioned between the two men. Tyler, you know Ronald? He's been your neighbor forever. Yes, it's nice to meet you again. This is a beautiful display that you're offering here. He wasn't shy, and as he spoke to Ronald, I couldn't help focusing on how delicious he looked in his long sleeve button-up shirt over black slacks. Ronald snagged my attention. You must be so proud of Lizzie here. She's a hard worker. He shook Tyler's hand and smiled at us both. My smile hardened on my face, and I shot a warning glance at Ronald. He didn't know Tyler didn't know what was going on, and why would he think I wouldn't tell my husband? But I hadn't. Oh. Snow flurries. The truth was catching up to me faster than I wanted it to. I needed Tyler to find out from me, the way I wanted to tell him, not the way the world was just determined to expose my truths to him. Of course, any reason in particular? Tyler shot a quizzical glance between me and Ronald and released his neighbor's hand to stand closer to me. No, none. I haven't done anything spectacular. I shot a few more warning glances at Ronald, who obviously didn't get the messages as he furrowed his brow at me. I shook my head and tugged on Tyler's sleeve. Let's go look at the baskets. We went to the next booth filled with hand-woven baskets and hand-dyed ribbons. Tyler looked at me quizzically. We forgot to buy some stuff from Ronald. Come on, let's go back and finish what we started. Tyler went back to Ronald's booth, and I'd somehow been pulled into a strange game of tug-of-war. Ronald was handing out a card to a man and a woman he was speaking with. We came up and caught the tail end of his conversation. The house doctor is the best repair person I've ever met. She seems to stick to a really good schedule, and she employs local laborers. She also offers a really fair deal. Go ahead and call her. She'll see if she can fit you in. The couple walked away, taking the card that Ronald offered them. You know the house doctor too? She's working on my house right now. Amazing woman. Tyler glanced at me with a pointed look and then glanced back at Ronald. Yeah, she's my neighbor. Ronald laughed, facing us. I was horrified and had no way to get myself out of the hole I had dug for me. Well, yeah, she's been working at the house. I didn't know what to do as a flush covered my body, and I broke out in a slight sweat. Any minute, He was going to know, and then he'd hate me. How long could I hold on to his affection? Can I see one of those cards? I never got one when she was working for me. He reached out. As if in slow motion, he pulled the card into his fingers and turned it so he could read it. I could jump him, tackle him, and take the card, or I could run around screaming and try to divert his attention by throwing my shoes. Instead, I bit my lip and watched as he read the entire card, including my name at the bottom. He didn't flinch or look at me. He had to be mad at me. I was mad at me. Tapping at the logo in the corner of the cloud, he said to me while looking at Ronald as if they were the best of friends, "I'm glad you went with the blue logo. The black was a little austere for me." I stopped breathing for a second. "How did you know I couldn't decide between logo colors? What is going on? Why aren't you mad? I've been hiding this from you." We faced each other. Ronald and the rest of the market faded away around us. He spoke fervently, in a low voice, meant only for me. "You came to me, and I didn't treat you right. You had every right to protect yourself. You had no obligation to tell me about anything you're doing. I was a little irritated at first when I figured it out, but I don't blame you. I was actually having a little bit of fun trying to see what would trip you up and what you would do to try to cover your tracks." He reached up and brushed the hair off my cheek. "I'm proud of you. I do hope you'll decide to stay with me. I hope from now on you'll feel comfortable and safe enough to tell me everything that you're doing." He studied me and lifted his fingers up to cradle my face in his hands. "I trust you. The only reason you lied to me was to protect yourself. I've been there, and I don't want to go back. I don't want to worry about having to protect myself from you or losing myself to you. I'm already lost." He pulled out a small box from his pocket, and I gasped. He slowly lifted it and pried open the black lid. "I've been carrying this thing around, and I can't think of a better time to tell you. I love you." Clicking "I do" may have been the answer to a bet, but it was the best thing I ever did. The weight from the couple months lifted from my shoulders and made me blink back tears. "I didn't know you knew. I'm not a good liar. I never have been. This has been hard. I didn't want to lie to you. I don't even have any excuses. I'm so sorry." But he knew why I did it. He accepted it. I had to accept it for myself. "I'm so relieved. I don't want to hide things from you." I glanced up and bit my lip. Oh, thank heaven, I thought I had ruined everything. Ronald cut into our romantic moment. "Here, take a jam and some bread and go do something. Go be lovey-dovey somewhere. You two are making me wish I was married." The smile on his face encouraged us. "Do you want to go work on us?" Tyler looked into my eyes, captivating me yet again. I can't think of anything better to fix. My heart beat for him, and I'd probably never be normal again. 4 months later. Tyler leaned in and kissed my lips. He took my tool belt and walked with me up the steps to the house. "Babe, you've got a meeting in the living room with your next client. I have tea set up in there for you." "Long day?" "Yes, don't get me wrong. Putting in that skylight has been extremely awesome. I just finished it. Can you make sure and contact Mr. Tim and send an invoice for the remainder of the payment, please? He promised to pay us by the end of the week, but I just wanted him to have a reminder. Working with my husband actually made it enjoyable. We were almost done with our 6 months, and it felt like we'd been together forever. I loved my part of the job, and he was really good at what he did, putting his managing and marketing experience to work and combining it with my skills. Slowly, we were going to take over the entire West Coast. All right, that was being optimistically crazy, but we were definitely going to make an impact. I rubbed my neck when I walked through the door. He placed a kiss to the crook of my neck. I turned, catching his lips with mine. "Thanks, maybe we could do spaghetti tonight." "I could cook?" I shot him a coy smile, and he responded with a soft swat to my rear end. Giggling, I grabbed the clipboard from the table before going into the living room. I studied the clipboard, and I couldn't read the writing while I walked. I stopped at the end of the couch and looked up, and almost choked. Alex. My best friend stood awkwardly from the plush couch and had a hand to the roundness of her stomach. All right, I need you to build something that will hold this stomach for me. She winked, holding out her arms. I couldn't contain my tears, and I wept, throwing myself in her familiar arms. She sniffed. You don't cry. What's wrong with you? I do when I'm so happy I can't keep it in. I kissed her cheek and pulled back. Look at you. I missed you so much. She glanced over my shoulder and I turned. A man I recognized as Jeremy Akers, the one that I had chosen for her to match with, stood in the doorway next to my husband. I glanced back at Alex. Who knew we'll see click and wed could make us so happy? Are you happy? She winked at me, rubbing the roundness of her stomach. Blissfully. And that was the full truth, and nothing but the truth. Great. Now I needed to come up with my own vows. Epilogue. Carlyle padded into Colin's office and offered her a cup of organic chocolate and orange tea. Did you see we just got another sign up? Colin turned from reading the letter she had just received from Elizabeth Snyder. Actually, Elizabeth Manning. She held it up and smiled at Carlyle. Did you read this? They didn't do any of our steps. I think she rarely checked in with me, and they are happy as ever. They don't even care that they're not going to get the money back. Can you believe that? They still need the prize for staying together. Go ahead and send them the check. She crossed her arms in front of her and rubbed her chin. I cannot believe that we have connected 3 amazing couples, and they're happy. She put her hands flat on the desktop, smashing the letter. Okay, who's next? Let's conquer this world with love, Carlyle. Normally, I get a message when someone signs up. Why didn't that happen this time? Do you need to contact the IT guy? Carlyle's eyes widened and he pointed at the sheet he printed off. It's a honeymoon first. Colin raised her eyebrows. What? Nobody has even been interested in that. She stared at him for a long moment. Okay, we need to initiate the alternate steps. Go ahead and set them to release every 24 hours and initiate the follow-up process as well. I cannot wait to see how this turns out. She would need popcorn over the next few weeks. She swiveled her chair around to see out the windows of her office. Who would have thought that matching people would be so profitable and so rewarding? The honeymoon first option only gave the newlywed couple 2 weeks to fall in love or decide to stay together. Would this couple be able to pull it off? Colin knew better than anybody that it only took a moment to fall in love, but it took forever to forget. Keep reading, and a sneak peek, and see who gets matched in E-Honeymoon. E-Honeymoon. 2 best friends matched for marriage. 1 honeymoon to make it work. Neither of them is certain they're making the right choice. When an online spouse matching website, Click and Wed, matches Kayla with a man she believes she's never met, she doesn't know if she wants to commit to 6 months with someone she's not sure she's even attracted to. With encouragement from her best friend, she opts for the shorter time frame of only 2 weeks and hopes there aren't certain expectations that are attached to honeymoons. Fireworks ignite as the truth comes out that the groom is her best friend, and he knew all along. The 2 weeks tick down. In this funny friends-to-lovers sweet romance, our matched bride and groom are thrust into the romance zone on their honeymoon. With only 2 weeks to either fall in love, impossible, or lose not only their marriage but their friendship. Kayla and Dylan have to decide just how far they're willing to go to find if their hearts really belong with each other. Say I do to this irreverently funny romance with poignant moments that will make you flip each page. E-Honeymoon. Chapter 1. Kay Ayla. Best friends shouldn't be as good-looking as Dylan Drake. In fact, if I had my way, Dylan would be back to the pudgy guy he was in high school. Only then would I be able to keep him all to myself and never worry I would have to share him with other women who only wanted to take advantage of him. I pushed through the doors of our favorite restaurant on Sherman Avenue, the main street of the small town of Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. We grew up cruising through downtown in our cars and out toward the beach of the huge lake. Just a stone's throw from the water, the Iron Horse Bar and Grill was set up like a pub. And game room on one side and a restaurant on the other. Dylan and I could never figure out which side we wanted to be on, and usually, whoever got there first would choose. Judging by his text, he'd arrived first. While he'd been at the office all day, I'd been checking on merchandise at one of our suppliers, or we would have driven together. Apparently, he preferred the tall tables on the tavern side that night. I got it. Heading to our 10-year high school reunion was more stressful than either of us wanted to admit. We both had a lot of baggage, and 10 years wasn't enough time to consolidate it all. Lots of alcohol on board wouldn't hurt as we set off down the yellow brick road. His dark, wavy hair and strong shoulders covered in a snug black t-shirt stood out from the other patrons. I could easily see him from the door. He pulled the look off without being a jerk. I'd never met a man who worked out as much as he did, and was the opposite of vain. Gripping my small purse, I slid into the seat across from him. Kicking his shins softly with my toe, I arched my brow. "How many phone numbers do you have so far? We haven't even started the night, and I can really see them checking you out." I winked and opened the menu. I already knew what I would get. In fact, Dylan knew me so well, I wouldn't be surprised if a Mai Tai and a plate of onion rings and mozzarella sticks showed up as I sat down. "You're just jealous. I told you I could be a one phone number guy. All you have to do is say the word." Dylan's deliciously decadent lips curved in a knowing smile as he threw down the challenge that was so common between us. I swear he teased me just because he knew he could. I folded up the menu and tapped its surface when I laid it down. I couldn't be with a guy who doesn't order before I get here. I had fallen for his games way too many times, believing it would always only be me. He just didn't know it. We started out as close friends in junior high and graduated as best friends. We were inseparable. A lot of the guys I dated couldn't handle me being best friends with a guy, especially one who looked the way Dylan did. In high school, though, he was an extra 100 to 150 pounds heavier. Back then, he wasn't as much competition as he was now. The older we got, the more we depended on each other. And dang it. The older we got, the more good-looking he got. Some things weren't fair. Before it became impossible for us to distinguish between what was my life and what was his, we had to do something. I had an idea I wanted to implement that night, but only if he was up for it. He'd been talking about a marriage app for a while, and I was finally interested in checking it out. I leaned across the table and smiled, teasing him. "It's okay. You're getting old. I don't expect you to order me a drink or my appetizers every time we come here." I winked and scratched my nails across the green Formica top. I flipped my thick, black hair over my shoulder. I'd left it down because Dylan convinced me down was the best style for the type of night we were up for. I wasn't so sure since it was already irritating me. He folded his arms and sat back, his forearms rippling as he considered me. Tilting his head toward the newly arrived waitress, he drawled, "I'll take your apology whenever you're ready to give it." Of course, a Saturday would put them a little behind. The items were late, and not because of Dylan. Heat flushed my cheeks, and I nodded my thanks to the woman as she sat my overflowing plate down, alongside a Mai Tai on a napkin. I waited until she dropped off his burger and left. I didn't need any witnesses to my groveling. "You're right. I'm sorry. I was just teasing, but I'm tense about this reunion. I still can't believe you're going on vacation in a week and a half. I don't know what I'm supposed to do with myself. Big Dog won't even need me. I won't be needed." I ended on a half wail that I stopped with a side smirk. "Don't you feel bad for me?" I wasn't joking, though. I really did feel like I was being abandoned. At least on some level I couldn't reach. I glanced around the restaurant, the bright colors suddenly more somber at the thought of my impending loneliness and boredom. "Come with me. It'll be fun." Dylan lifted his amber beer, peering at me over the rim of his glass. "We have to close Big Dog anyway. There's nothing you can do while it's under construction. Maybe you should come with me. We can do some market research." He offered a compelling argument, but I couldn't go on vacation with him. That's where I drew the line. I'd never been able to go when he asked me in the past. That was something for girlfriends or wives or parents. I was just the best friend. I knew my boundaries and where I belonged. Except I always wanted to go with him. The temptation was there, and I didn't like that. Sometimes I was more inclined than others. Right then, with the reunion minutes away, I was more susceptible to his suggestions than usual. We'd be there with everyone happily married or dating someone. I'd be the single girl, and Dylan would be collecting numbers left and right. Women were shamed for not being married, and men were celebrated for being unattached. Scrunching my nose, I wiggled my fingers at him. It's okay. Maybe I'll go visit Mom or take in some reading. There's a bunch of books I want to get caught up on. I dipped a mozzarella stick in the marinara sauce and took a big bite as I looked around the bar at people I didn't care about. I didn't want him to push me too much, but a small part of me wanted him to push a lot. How far would he have to push for me to give in? You can read where I'm going. He was cut off by the sudden arrival of a long-legged redhead in tight jeans and a crop top I swear went out of fashion in the 1990s. I'm Simone. She stood at Dylan's side and put her hands on her insanely slim hips, thrusting her chest forward. She winked. Want to share a derailer, stud? Stud? Maybe she'd already had one. The derailer was the most popular drink in North Idaho. The bucket had more alcohol than should be considered legal, and it was served with 5 cups of ice. 4 or 5 people could easily drink out of the same bucket and walk away buzzed. When someone wanted to split a drink like that, they offered more than just a one-drink time. I tried focusing on my onion rings, but I couldn't help but wonder what he would say. She was gorgeous and didn't look like she was used to hearing no. He grinned, letting his gaze rake her figure and commenting in a slow drawl. Not right now, honey. Maybe later. He winked and dismissed her by turning away to face me. Her jaw dropped and she stared at him a moment longer before turning in a huff and stomping away. In heels that high, stomping was an amazing feat. A guy like Dylan had propositions coming out his ears. I pushed the jealousy that was always present to the side. I'd made my decision in high school and then again in college, and then again every year and almost every day since we met. Dylan and I owned an amusement park together. We worked out together. We even lived on the same street. We had grown up as next-door neighbors. We were habits that were hard to break. We knew everything there was to know about each other, and then some. He was the second constant man in my life. My grandpa had died the year before, taking my only other steady man in my life. My father left when I was younger. Dylan filled that hole in my heart, and I refused to lose him because I couldn't handle commitment. Every man I had dated since then had just been like artificial sweetener to sugar. They never stuck around, just like my dad, proving I was the common denominator. I wasn't worth staying for. If Dylan and I got into a relationship where love was involved, how long would it take for him to leave too? If having a romance with me highlighted my negative aspects, I would do everything I could to not have that happen with Dylan. Besides, romance was overrated. We had more than romance. Okay, we didn't have more than romance, and sometimes a woman needed that. But I wouldn't trade what he and I had for a little bit of lust and candles. Eventually, they always left. I had plenty of experience in that department. I didn't want to scare Dylan off, too. Keep reading.